Hello there, I'm Bruce Williams. Now, why in the world did I produce these tapes, and why in the world did you spend your hard-earned money on them? Well, I think for the same reasons. All of us need a little help along the way. Yeah, help in getting from one spot to another. That's what my program is all about, helping people along the way. Now, I don't always have the answers, but I'll do my best to show you how to find the answers. Now, throughout this whole series, you're going to hear one word over and over and over again, and that word is discipline. It's defined as simply an exercise of self-control or to impose order. You see, if you don't have the self-control, if you don't do things in an orderly fashion, you're beat. You really are. And what I'm going to try to do is show you, hey, let's face it, I am not the most disciplined person in the world. I have to work on it every single day. But if I can do it, clearly you can do it. Now, I would say sometimes about the tough economic times, but let's face it, all times are tough. Some are just tougher than the others, or all times are easy. But it's absolutely important, in good times or bad, that you get reliable information from people that you can trust and people that know what they're talking about. You see, oftentimes information is, well, slanted. I guess that's the best way to put it. You watch these things on television. All you got to do is send them a check for $295. They are going to have you swimming in the loot. I mean, you're going to have that Rolls Royce every single weekend at your summer or winter retreat, vacations in the islands, and only $295 away. Well, if you believe that, I have an autographed edition of the Bible I want to talk to you about. It's just never going to happen that way. This is not, not a get-rich-quick scheme. I can't tell you how to buy real estate with no money down, and frankly, I've done so. It is just a detailed map, a map that you can put to use every single day the rest of your life to help you get to a sound financial destination. Socrates was once asked how to get to Mount Olympus. What he said was the way to get to Mount Olympus is to be certain that every step you take is in that direction. Well, that's simple. Our goal is to help you get on the right path. Now, if you're looking for or expect a professorial tone, forget it, because that's just not my style. What I will do is tell a joke or two along the way, make light of some serious things, but I'll give you the best information that I have at my disposal. I will promise you this, you will have the best I have to offer, but I'm going to have a good time doing it. And that's another promise. Now, let's throw some figures at you. I want you to try to digest these because some of them are scary. On average, now remember, the average family has 2.3 kids. I don't know where the 0.3 kid comes from. But on average, we Americans save only 4% of our income. Think about this. Our Japanese friends save 24%, and the Germans have been saving 17%. You got to wonder who won World War II, huh? Yeah. We are the greatest credit-using nation on earth. Now, that's not all bad, but we do carry a much higher personal debt than the citizens of other countries. How about this? The DHE, the Department of Health and Education, tells us that at age 65, if you take 100 people that are starting out in their career paths today, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, think about this. When this bunch reaches 65, well, 29 aren't going to get there. They're going to die between now and 65. 13 of our 100 are going to have annual incomes, this is scary, under $3,500 a year. 55 will have annual incomes between $3,500 and $20,000, but the median is only $6,000. And just 3, that's 3%, will have annual incomes in excess of $20,000. And that's not exactly a princely sum, but by the standards set by the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare, this 3% are financially successful. Now, if those figures don't frighten you, you really shouldn't continue. Really. But think about this. Only 3% are marginally successful. Marginally successful. Well, what I want to try to do is make you more than marginally successful. People don't plan to fail, but tons of people fail to plan. Think about this. Football coach shows up with his team. Rah, rah, rah. The guys are all out there. They got their equipment on. He gets them out in the middle of the field. They've been practicing all week. He says, all right, fellas, let's do some exercise. Let's get warmed up, and then we'll work on some plays. You'd say, what kind of a coach is that? Showing up at the big game And now he's going to invent some plays. But that's how most of us live our lives. We show up at the big game of life with absolutely no plays. Now, what do you suppose your chances are of success? Well, we're back up to those figures. Just 3 out of 100 have incomes that are marginally financially successful. Or put another way, 97% of us fail. Now, let's face it. Most of us have a tendency to put off tasks that seem insurmountable. Now, think about this. If you walked in and you had one of those huge hero sandwiches that some of you guys love, if I said, eat it in one bite, you'd look at me like I was, ready for a rubber room. You'd say, how in the world could anybody eat that or enjoy it or savor it in one bite? Well, the answer is you can't. But if you nibble away at it, pretty soon you say, where in the world did that sandwich go? Well, most of the tasks that are put before us are similar. If you nibble away at the thing, you get where you're going. Now, putting your financial house in order is not as attractive as a good tuna sub, at least not for where I'm sitting. And it could look like a task that's absolutely monumental. What we're going to do is approach it, in a systematic, nibble-by-nibble way, an easy-to-follow map, which will help put us all on the road to financial soundness. Now, admittedly, we are not all going to have the same amount of money because we're not all going to earn the same amounts of money. We may as well get the most mileage out of what we earn. Now, what is the financial planning process? And maybe more important, how do I begin? It's okay for those other guys. I want to know what I have to do. Well, the first step is a personal acknowledgement that things aren't quite the way they should be. You got to say, look, up until now, I'm not doing such a great job. I have to understand that I want to pull things together in a comprehensive plan. And to do that, we've got to have a system. Now, you've already taken a giant step. Why? Because you sprung for the price of this series, and I hope you're not disappointed. But that was a big move. I'll bet some of you guys and gals hesitated. You waited to call that 800 number. I'll do it tomorrow, the next day. Perfectly natural. I'm glad you got the job done. But if you put the tapes away, put them in the trunk of the car, put the music back on, you've thrown your money away. You've got to pay attention. That's right. You paid the price. Now you got to pay attention. The next step, we want to take a detailed analysis of where you are currently. In other words, you can't know where you're going unless you know where you are. I think you'd agree on that. So first of all, let's talk about debt. I guess we've all got that. What is your debt situation? How much do you owe? Oh, it's not hard to figure. A little painful, but not hard to figure. Write it down. And of course, what is your current income? And more important, I guess, what income potential do you have in the future? It may be you're maxed out. Well, at least face that. In most jobs, you reach this glass ceiling. In other words, you're a teacher. You've been teaching for 25 years. You are a great Spanish teacher. But the fact is that you are at the top of the scale. You'll get cost of living increases, and that's all. Why so? Because you've maxed out. The best teacher in the world is only worth so many dollars. Take that into account in your plan. When do you want to retire? If you ask me that question, I'd say never. The day after they bury me, maybe. But most folks look forward to retirement, and that's all right. There are a few of us around that want to keep working. Matter of fact, there are a couple of 3 professions where people try to go on forever. Physicians seldom retire. That's a fact. Talk show hosts, well, that's all that matter. Most of them get retired. But really, I don't choose to retire. What I'm going to try to help you do is once you've set that goal, 65, 70, maybe even 50, I want to help you get there. I want to develop an inventory of your current situation in terms of income and debt and what your anticipated income and debts will be. Now, the next step, we're going to help you develop a specific set of goals and objectives. This is the control in establishing a plan. Unless you have the goals, unless you have the objectives, how in the world can you establish a plan? Makes sense, huh? Hey, everything you hear is going to make sense, but this is not rocket science or brain surgery. Most of the things we are going to talk about, I bet you already knew, but you never took the time to see how important they were. And of course, the best plan in the world, just like that football coach, not worth a dime unless you put it into action. Theory becomes reality. That's what happens on the playing field. And lastly, periodically, we have to monitor our plan of things. Why? Because the only thing certain in life is change. Things are always changing and will continue to change throughout our lifetime. Now, you bought these tapes. How can you get the most mileage out of them? How do you get the biggest bang for your buck? Well, you have to do some things that are not so much fun. As a matter of fact, some will be downright painful. Sorry about that, champ, but unless you suffer the pain, I don't see much gain coming along. There is a personal financial quiz. It's included in your material. Come on now, get it out, get the soft pencil, and after you take the quiz, you're going to determine the score. I want to go over some of the items on your quiz, and I want you to listen to the tapes that cover each of the following subjects. Cutting expenses, using coupons. You say, I'm too good for that. Well, maybe you are, and maybe you're not. We're going to talk about it. We're going to talk about credit, mortgages, credit cards, where to borrow, how to borrow, why to borrow, when not to borrow. Maybe that last thing is most important, when not to borrow. We're going to talk about benefits planning, risk management. You see, anytime you invest money, understand this, anytime there is some degree of risk. You say, ho, not in my case. I've got my money in CDs, the bank is insured. What happens if our government goes right down the sewer? You say, couldn't happen. Yeah, it could. Unlikely, but there's a certain amount of risk even there. Budgeting. Here comes the major league pain. When we get to budgeting, I'm going to have some of you guys squirming like you were sitting in the electric chair. That's all right, as long as you keep squirming and keep paying attention. Retirement planning, Social Security, Medicare, that's all right. But how about savings and investments? Yeah, the things you pay for yourself. Because let me tell you something. If you rely just on the feds, you're going to have a very, very miserable retirement. And of course, estate planning. If you've been successful and do all the things we've talked about on your own or with us, and then you blow it, you're going to give it all to the federal government, the biggest chunk. I don't want you to do that. I'd like you to pass it on to those you choose to leave it to. Then, when we get all done, about 90 days from now, 3 long months. Remember the guys in World War II? No, you don't remember because you're too young for that. But you've seen the movies. They called them 90-day wonders. These were guys they took out and made them second lieutenants in 90 days and shot them all up in 91st day. Well, 90 days from now, after I've taken you through basic training, I'm going to pin on your gold bars, and then you're going to retake the exam. And you're going to check your old score and your new score. And I certainly hope there are some improvements. Having said all this, periodically, now here comes the real punishment. You got to listen to these tapes from time to time. Let them remind you of where you were, where you began, where you are now, and where you want to be. All right, campers, now we take out our financial quiz. These are just a few simple questions, but they'll help you get a good idea of where you are today. Now, there are some ground rules. No, I can't stand over you with my wooden spoon like your mother might have. Put the kids in a rack. Turn on the answering machine. Turn down the monitor. No disruptions, no interruptions, because it's time to take the test. Okay, take out your financial quiz from the worksheets, and we'll begin. And take your time. This is not a race. There are no right or wrong answers as such. But hear this. You can cheat me. Cheat on your wife or husband. Cheat your kids, cheat your boss, but you cannot cheat yourself. Unless you're honest, there's no way in the world this is going to be of any assistance to you. So be honest. Be brutally frank with yourself. Okay, my current budget can be best described as, number 1, non-existent. A lot of people are going to say that one. Secondly, reviewed more than 3 years ago, and currently is used as shelf paper in an obscure closet. Well, a lot more will go down that road. 3, my budget is written down, but I can be swayed off the track from time to time. And finally, I have a budget which my family sticks to strictly and which we never deviate from our course. There are very few of us that can answer number 4, honestly. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, just circle your answer. Secondly, my personal financial goals. They're never discussed or thought about. Never bother yourself with that. Oh, I've got them in my head, and they're somewhat vague, or clear in that I have a set of goals, and my family has another set. And finally, written down and shared by each member of the family. Now, I'm not talking about your 3-year-old crumb snatcher. I'm talking about people who understand. And as long as we're on the topic, children do not learn good financial habits by osmosis. Isn't it interesting? We want our kids to learn about the Byzantine Empire. Emperor Constantine is at the top of the list. But we never teach the kid how to balance a checkbook or what a savings account is all about. What's the difference between compound interest and simple interest? Oh, they touch upon it in school. But really, parents, it's up to you to show the kids which way to go. Don't depend on the schools in this one. Okay, number 3, I deviated. I apologize. My current debt situation. We're talking about credit cards. We're talking about automobiles. Now, we're going to exclude your mortgage unless you have a negative balance. What does it mean, a negative balance? Easily said and unhappily said. A lot of people paid, pick a number, $100,000 for a house. They bought at the high part of the market in the late 80s. Suddenly that house is not worth 100 anymore. It's worth 75. Hey, you're listening to a guy who got into an investment like, oh yeah, I mean, I've been Captain Smith of the Titanic many times, but I'm learning from my mistakes. In any case, if you put down 20,000 and now the house is only worth 70, you paid 100, that means the likelihood is you owe more than the house is currently worth. In that case, you have to include the negative value of your house, but not the positive value of the house. Fair enough? Okay, so what is my total debt situation? Over 25% of my annual income? That is heavy. Really. Something in the order of 15 to 25% of my annual income. Under 5%, or terrific because I have no debt. Well, let's face it, that may be a good answer, that fourth one. The other side of that, if you don't have any debt, maybe you're not using borrowing to your best advantage. We'll touch upon that. Now, next question. I've got my financial team out there. The banker, the CPA, the attorney, the insurance broker, the whole crowd. First of all, is that group non-existent? The only contact I have with my banker is the ATM machine at the supermarket. I bet that applies to a lot of you younger folks. Oh, yeah. You couldn't get along without that automatic teller. Well, I'm going to show you how you can. Secondly, okay, I know at least 2 of the folks by name, and they would return my calls. Well, that's a step in the right direction, but pretty stable. I've worked with all these people at least once in the last 5 years. It's a better answer. I'd like even the last 2 years even more. And finally, great, I know these folks and meet with each of them on a periodic basis. There is one we're really going to work on. How about your emergency fund? Well, it stinks. If I need money, there'll be another emergency. That's probably true. Thank goodness for Grandma, and thank goodness for the ATM machine, huh, kids? If you answer number 1, I'll bet you live for one or the other. And if your grandmother is stingy or has gone on to her reward, then all you got left is the ATM machine. We're going to clean that act up. Or it could be, you'll answer, it's less than I'd like it to be, 1 to 3 months income in cash. But I'll tell you something, you were in a distinct minority at that level. If you said, I feel okay with 3 to 6 months income as in savings, I think you're doing pretty decently. And if you say you're liquid over 6 months cash in savings, I'm going to salute the next time you come to the neighborhood, because you are very definitely in a minority unless you're pushing 60. How about your will? Oh, you say, I don't need a will. I'm not dying. None of us plan on dying, but I got news for you. You're going just like the rest of us. It's time to have that review. Or you could say it's written, but I may need some changes. And the likelihood is a lot of changes. And I have a feeling there are very few of us that can say this. It's written, it's reviewed regularly, and my attorney has a copy on file. Understand this, though. Having a copy on file is not going to help you very much. Only the original will can be filed for probate. Let me say that again. Only the original will can be filed for probate. A will is a living document. Things change. Taxes change. Relationships change. Maybe one of your kids needs it more than the other now. And maybe 5 years from now, that kid is out knocking them dead, and another youngster may need it. Maybe you want to look first to your spouse. The point is, you do have a will. Everybody in the United States has a will. Did you know that? It's true. Only problem is most of those wills are drawn by the state where they live. It's called intestacy. You see, if you die without that little paper socked away someplace, don't worry. Let me tell you, the state of whatever is going to have the rules. Well, the only problem with that is there's a very distinct possibility that someone other than someone that you really want and love is going to wind up with your bread. Got to have a will. How about insurance? Oh, this is easy. We're talking about casualty insurance. It does not include a personal umbrella policy. Well, shame on you. If you listen to me at all regularly and know that I demand that you carry a personal umbrella policy. Why? Because simply put, it can save you oceans of grief at pennies a day. Or if you've answered it includes an up-to-date personal umbrella policy, I'll give you a gold star on your forehead when you go home tonight with your spouse. You can say, I've done it really right. How about people who are disabled? Well, if you're disabled, does your salary stop after the sick pay expires? You've got big troubles. Or if your salary will continue at a smaller percentage to an employer long-term disability policy, you're better off. But finally, your salary could be replaced through a personal disability policy which supplements any group disability plan. That's the one you should answer, and I must tell you, I can't. Truly, I've carried disability policy from time to time. It's something that I've got to plug up in my leaky little ship. I'm not going to lie to you. I couldn't answer all these questions affirmatively and properly. I know the answers, but like you, I procrastinated. Let's talk about life insurance. Or maybe I would call it death insurance. Can you imagine if a guy comes rapping on your door, good afternoon, I'm Chris McMahon. I'm your friendly death insurance salesman, and he's on the side of his car, he has a little emblem, the skull and crossbones. I don't think you'd buy very much. But yet, for most of us, that's what we're talking about. Insurance that kicks in when we die. Now, it could be considered a savings vehicle in some cases, but it's still on balance, designed to do something when you're not in the picture. Either pay taxes, take care of your family, whatever. Well, if you answer about your life insurance is not worth discussing, we're going to discuss it, however painful it's going to be for you. Don't tell me you can't afford it, because I'm going to tell you the likelihood is you cannot afford not to carry it. If you're carrying 3 times your salary, well, that's not too bad. 6 times your salary, you're getting there. And up to 10 times your salary, you got it made. Think about this. In today's world, in the safer investment forms, safer. Getting 7-8%, you're doing very, very nicely. I remember when I was doing radio a few years ago, and I used to laugh at people with a 5.5% savings account. Now, if you get 5.5% from your bank, you'd be a hero of some kind. And you will get it again. Because interest rates, like everything else, are not written in concrete somewhere. They go up, they go down. They're held down by the federal government, by the Federal Reserve to be specific, during recessionary times, and allowed to rise to cool off the economy when things are really cooking. So you can believe when things are going well and you're making lots of money, you are going to get more interest and you are going to pay more interest. That's just the nature of the beast. Well, suppose that you had $500,000 of insurance right now and you died. If your family was able to earn $22,000 or $23,000 safely on that $500,000 without touching principal, that would be doing real well. You say $500,000 sounds like a lot, but could your family live on $22,000 or $23,000 a year? That's what we're going to deal with. And we're going to talk a little bit about life insurance, what it can do for you, as well as what's the best way to get the most for my buck in life insurance. Because let me tell you something, every salesperson in the world is not going to tell you that. How about coupons? I must tell you, I hate to get behind somebody in line at the counter with a whole bunch of coupons. You watch one of these little, particularly, one of my homes is in Florida, where retirement is a way of life where I'm living. I mean, geriatrics is an industry in that part of the world. And those folks are out shopping at 7:30 in the morning. I cannot believe who shops at 7:30. I'll tell you something. Whole store full of people at 7:30 in the morning. I never even knew anything worthwhile happened before noon. But one day I did have to get up early. I walked in the store, 8 o'clock. There they are. I figured, well, as long as I'm up, I'll do my shopping. What a mistake that was. You get behind these people with coupons. You know what that says? They're smarter than I am. Sure. Because I'm walking in there and dropping $100 to buy the same things they're buying for $70. I'm scratching my head and saying, hey, dummy. I don't like being behind the little old lady with a henna rinse and all those coupons on the other side of that. She's a whole lot smarter. She's buying with 70-cent dollars. And when you think about the dollars you're spending are after-tax dollars, they've already been ravaged by taxes up to a third. She's saving a ton of money. So, reluctantly, I paid a little attention to coupons. Not as much as I should, but then, in my case, in my own defense, I don't do a whole lot of shopping because I eat out most of the time. But coupons, if you answer aren't for me, you're as dumb as I am. You see, when the manufacturer gives a discount for coupons, you know that there's a certain amount of price increase to compensate for the discount. So at least you're even if you use the coupons. Double coupons, you may be ahead. If you don't use the coupon, you pay the penalty for those people who are using the coupons. So if you answered aren't for me, get behind me and start getting smart. If you answer there are necessary evils and use them occasionally, you're getting there. If you use them often, but frequently you buy products which I would not otherwise use, you fell right into their trap. What you're doing is you're buying stuff over your budget that you don't have to have. But if you make them a way of life, some guys say 10%, I'm telling you, you can save 20 or 25%. Matter of fact, if you really want to make a game of it, if you're working the short line, perhaps you're in college, you're supporting a family, you can save 30 and 40% by the proper use of coupons. It's like throwing cash away. Oh, just a little aside. Thursday and Sunday papers are your best bet. That's when you find the most coupons. That's the advertisers put them in on Thursday. Why? Because Thursday and Friday are payday for a lot of people. And the Sunday supplements that are inserts in your Sunday paper are loaded with coupons. But look at all the coupons, all the sales, all the inserts. Oh, that's like money in the bank if you're there in town. I don't want to beat it to death, kids, but there is money in couponing. It's a pain in the neck. But I'll tell you, I've had a number of ladies say, I want to get a part-time job. They'd make a whole lot more money doing the coupon caper than they would working for somebody else for a minimum wage a couple hours a day. Let's talk about your retirement, your savings plan. If it includes very little relying heavily on Social Security, you are in deep, yes, you certainly are, up to your eyeballs, because Social Security at its best will not support you in any reasonable lifestyle. If you answered my company retirement package only, same thing, in most cases, not enough. But if you have Social Security, a company retirement, and your personal savings of 5 to 10% of income, in addition to the company plans, you're in pretty good shape. But if you have a detailed analysis of all your programs, government-sponsored, how much you're going to get, and I'll bet most of you don't, and if it works out, so you'll have something on the order of 75 to 80% of your current income, and that takes inflation into account, you are going to live like a prince. I feel that reading business publications is, I've had so many people tell me this, complete waste of time. Well, if that's your answer, kids, I'm not going to change your reading taste if I possibly can. Important, but I need no more than one a month. Wrong again. Critical, I generally read at least 3 or 4 business publications a month. Is that critical? You got to be kidding me. What are you reading, The Star? The Inquirer? You got to spend so much time. Hey, we're back to that word again. Let's look it up again. Discipline. You've got to have the discipline to read the important stuff. When I commute to work, and I do commute on the train from time to time, on the way in, I dictate, I read the Wall Street Journal and trade stuff. On the way home, I read the New York Post. I reward myself. I enjoy the New York Post. I mean, other guys are reading the Times and whatever. I read the New York Post. Tabloid, all the blood, the gore, the sex, and the rest of it. But I read that when I'm tired on the way home at night. And I read articles that are not necessarily of great interest to me, but I read the articles that I think at one time or another may be important to me. And there's a big difference between of interest to me and being important to me. I am going to start you off with a reading list, things that I feel are important. Now realize every guest list is an exclusion list. I am not going to tell you this is an all-inclusive list. It is just a sampling from this huge menu that's available to you. If you answered of paramount importance, I read at least 5 publications a month, as well as newspaper business sections of my paper, you're getting there. You're not there yet. You really are not. Oh, by the by, A Soldier of Fortune does not count as a business publication. Sorry about that, campers. Neither does Playboy or the Red. Hey, not bad reading. But on the other side of that, these are the must-hits. I try and read a novel a week. Now, I've fallen down the last few weeks, very candidly, but I try to read 50 novels a year. Doesn't matter what I'm reading, as much as getting it in. This is recreational stuff and discipline. But the absolute essentials, things like the Wall Street Journal and whatever, we're going to get you broken in those things. Now, score it up. You may be in good shape. You may be not such great shape. It could be you're down by 4 touchdowns and only 3 minutes to go in a football game. Well, miracles happen. We'll put the 2-minute offense and we'll go to work. But we can't do it unless you're honest with yourself. Now, if you've honestly answered these questions, get your score together. I'm not going to embarrass you and ask you what it is, but you know.
The Bruce Williams series continues. Please turn to side B.
Now, by way of getting started, we're going to remove the goals worksheet. We're going to have you list your most important goals. Try and put them in order from 1 to 5, but realize that these can constantly be shuffled. Now, as we go through the tapes, if you can, keep a little yellow pad close by and jot down what you believe to be the most outstanding ideas you've heard for obtaining your goals. You see, each tape is designed to be self-contained, but there are little bits and snippets here and there that you can apply, and no one can tell you in advance what you're looking for, because clearly your goals are different from mine, different from the next guy or gal's. For continuity, we suggest you start at the beginning. Wasn't it Alice who talked about that, starting at the beginning? And you go through the entire series. Don't leapfrog around. Once you've heard it all, and you want to listen to one or another again, hey, I salute that and I'm very pleased. But indulge me. At the outset, take them in order. Only listen when you can listen with undivided attention. Don't do it when the kids are running around. Don't try and watch television. I have no objection to listening while you're jogging. Listening in bed, I hope it isn't soporific, doesn't put you to sleep. But the point being, you've spent your money. But the tapes are not going to do you the slightest bit of good. Look at it this way. You could spend a ton of money on exercise equipment. You can have the bike, the Nautilus equipment, put the pool in the backyard for laps, a steam room in the bathroom, and you say, by golly, I'm going to get in shape. Well, unless you ride the bike, use the steam, do the laps, lift the weights, nothing is going to happen. There was a great commercial for Bally's. You know, Bally that runs the health clubs, Jack LaLanne and so forth. And it was done by Cher. Now, let's face it, kids. Cher, for a lady her age or any age, has a savage body. And there's Cher lifting the weights and pushing away and doing all her thing. And she's glowing. You see, women glow. Men sweat, women glow. You know how that goes. So Cher is glowing and breathing just a little bit hard from exercise, not from some other activity. And she says, I may be paraphrasing, but reasonably accurately, if fitness came in a bottle, we'd all look great. Well, if good financial health came in a bottle, we'd all be financially fit. It doesn't. It comes from hard work. Back to that word again, it comes with discipline and a certain degree of sacrifice. Are you up to the task? Well, let's find out. Let's first talk about budgets. Uh-oh, that's not a dirty word, honest. It is a tough word to deal with, and before I get done, I'm going to make it really smart. And I don't mean intelligent, I mean hurt. But a budget is such a useful tool. That's part of the financial facts of life. Budgets require, there's that D word again, discipline. You see, it doesn't matter completely what you make, but it matters how you manage it, how you save. You see, no matter how much you earn, if you throw it away, you're a failure. You can't always control what you earn. In other words, you run up against that glass ceiling I spoke about before. You may be maxed out. That's not a disgrace. It could be a little frustrating, but not a disgrace. But you're not in total control of what you earn, but you are in complete control of how you save, what you save, and how you spend what you have. And that's what we're here to talk about. Now, first of all, let's just take some general ideas about cutting expenses, because we're back to that same thing again. I can't help you earn more in most cases, but I can show you how to cut expenses, and in effect, that's earning more. As a matter of fact, the expense cutting is even a greater saving than first appears. Why? Because every dollar you save, or almost every dollar you save, I'm very much afraid of absolutes, almost every dollar you save is an after-tax dollar, which is like saving $1.25 to $1.50, depending on your circumstances. First of all, let's talk about living expenses. Buy what you can afford, when you can afford, in cash. Now, when I say cash, it doesn't necessarily mean green money. What it means is use your credit card, but make certain you have a credit card where there are no penalties for paying in full within a time period, usually 25 to 28 days. Or if you prefer, write a check, but don't go crazy with a checkbook. You want to drive a merchant nuts, walk in and give them $1.25 check. And by the way, it's a lousy idea. Why? Because the bank is going to make you pay for the check and the privilege of writing the check. A very expensive venture. It doesn't cost any more to write a $2 check, a $20 check, or a $2,000 check, assuming the money's in the bank. So don't start writing those little piddly old checks. But use your check, use your credit card. In short, pay for what you can in cash. Don't finance unless it's necessary. This may sound very silly, but let me tell you something. Buy in season. When you go to the supermarket and you're going to buy esoteric prepackaged stuff, it's going to cost you geometrically more than fresh produce in season. In the summertime, eat lots of corn. In the wintertime, turnip tastes pretty good. But the point is, if these things are harvested and given to you in season, rather than being processed and frozen and stored away, the prices are going to be far more reasonable. Now, I realize it's very convenient to buy the other stuff. And if you're making tons of money, go for it. But if you're trying to save money, you buy in season, you buy in bulk, and you prepare yourself. If you don't need it, here comes that miserable discipline word. Don't buy it. Little kids need everything. Disciplined adults need some things and want many others. And you got to have a list. What's more important? And speaking of lists, take a shopping list with you. Do your best not to deviate. Impulse buying, particularly in today's supermarkets. I mean, let's face it. The last thing they have is groceries in the supermarket today. I mean, you can go in there and get prescriptions filled. You can buy hunting supplies, automobile supplies, and the list is almost endless. Well, it's convenient. I'll grant you that. But on the other hand, you walk in there, and I've done it myself so many times. I go in for a little dog food, maybe some bologna and a loaf of bread, and walk out spending $100 on stuff that I never thought about buying when I walked in the store. Discipline? No. But when you're working on a budget, discipline yourself. And by the way, this sounds silly. Don't go to the supermarket hungry. Yeah, have something to eat beforehand. Because if you're going in there with an appetite, all of a sudden, all the goodies are going to look 4 times as good to you. Yeah, fill up. Have a soda. Have a sandwich before you go. Maybe even something a little bit sweet. Get the sugar level satisfied. And you'll be surprised how much less you'll spend. Psychologically, I don't know why it works, but it does. The one thing that I really object to, unless, again, discipline reigns, and that's using a charge card in the supermarket. Can you imagine buying groceries and then paying for them, the minimum balance on your credit card? But there are people who are doing that. If that's happening to you, you really, really, really need help. Leave those money access, the ATM cards home. Bring in the cash or bring your check. But for pity's sake, don't charge edibles that are gone tomorrow and you're paying for them for the next 2 years. I really believe that there ought to be a certain restriction on that type of spending, but we can deal with that another time. By all means, when you get a credit card, do your best to get either a low fee or a no fee card. Now, I don't care a whit what the interest rate is on a credit card, on a Visa card, a MasterCard, or whatever. I don't care. Why? You say, well, you got lots of money, Bruce. No, it's not it at all. But the point is, I will not buy something on the credit card unless I can pay for it within the prescribed 28 or 25-day cycle. As a consequence, I don't have to worry at all about interest. I don't care if they charge 100% interest. Doesn't matter to me in the slightest, because I'm never going to give those folks a nickel in interest. There are many, many permutations on these credit cards. You got to be careful. For example, there are a lot of cards that have no fee whatsoever. You say, wow, that's money from home. I'm going to grab it. Hold the phone. That's not such a great idea many times. Why? Because on those cards, not always, understand there's no absolutes in this racket, but on many of those cards, the moment that they put your card into the machine that's electronically tied into the computer, you start paying interest. No, you don't pay $20 or $30 per annum. But as soon as you charge the dinner, before the dinner's digested, the meter is turning on the interest. That is no bargain. By all means, never get that kind of credit card. Never. Because there's no way to avoid the interest. Yeah, you save $20, but you give it up in multiples each and every time you use that card. Stay away from those things. Consider using local phone service, which will bill you for each individual call if it's available to you. Very few people shop phones. Yeah. I mean, there are all manner of different deals around. I get all kinds of proposals from the different telephone companies because I have several telephones. And I must tell you, for a time I'd give them to a subordinate and not read them at all. But today's world dictates you've got to read them. The credit card calls. Are they a good idea? Well, they're better than collect calls, but they're not as good as a coin-paid call. Now, how about this? You're in a hotel. If you really want to have a needle stuck in your arm and have the blood sucked out, make a phone call from many hotels. They'll tell you right up front, it says so right on the nightstand, 75-cent surcharge for local calls, $2 and plus 40%, or the operator-assisted rate will apply even if you direct dial. Isn't that something else? Well, not for Mr. Williams. Thank you very much. I make as few calls as I must from the hotel. And if I must make them, and I'm not in a hurry, because some people would call me parsimonious, others cheap. Well, I'll let you decide which it is. But I go down to the lobby, and I make a call with a coin phone, which is less expensive, and I say in 10 minutes, call me back in my room, because my office or my friends can take the direct dial rate from where they are, which is very, very inexpensive, and call me back in my room. Yeah. Now, I will not play this game. It was around for years. Calling collect for Mr. Smith. Well, Mr. Smith isn't there, so they know you're in your room. I think that's wrong. I don't do that. But I do call and say, call me back. You can save all manner of money. You want to look around between the phone systems, what's better for you. One system is good for me, the next for the next guy, and the next for the third guy. You must shop. Otherwise, you're going to pay a ton more for your phone service than is necessary. Now, if your time is worth $500 an hour, then don't do what I told you. But so many people will talk to me and say, how do I get a part-time job? Well, one of your part-time jobs should be looking over for the leaks in your life. And that telephone can be a huge leak. Try eating at home more often. Now, I understand dining out is a luxury. Frankly, not for me. I'd rather have meatloaf, peas, and mashed potatoes at home anytime because my lifestyle dictates I eat out almost all the time, frequently on airplanes, which is an experience that I wouldn't wish on an enemy. Prisoners of war have been eating better than some of these airplanes, but that's another program. Fact is, eating out is a luxury. Treat it as a luxury. Eating out, indeed, is expensive. How about cable television? Listen, I like to watch TV from time to time, and very candidly, I have cable in my home because the hours that I keep, when I get home at night, the only thing on is a couple of tired, repeated late-night talk shows interviewing the same bunch of celebrities who I didn't have any interest in the first place. So, frankly, I do carry cable in my home. However, I don't have all the premium channels. I mean, I just don't see any reason for it to have 45 different movies coming in. Now, if you're the kind of guy or gal that watches those things, and it's a replacement for night out, I have no quarrel with that. But I do know so many of my friends have every single cable luxury that exists to man, and they don't watch most of that stuff. Why would you pay for that? If you're paying $10 or $12 a month for a service you don't use, you can go out and rent 6 movies, 6 of your choice, not of their choice. In short, cable has penetrated most of our homes. I do believe it to be a positive thing, but I know that at least in the cable systems that I've been exposed to, unless you're careful, what used to be a minor part of your budget can be $75, $80, $100 a month, and that's a major part of most budgets. Absolutely true. We've talked about those ubiquitous coupons, but I'm going to not let up on you because the coupons can save you a ton of money. There are countless books written on couponing, and we're going to give you the names of some of these. It's an art form. It really is. And some people are really, really ingenious as to how to use them. I guess it depends upon how short money is in your household. But if you're young, you have 2 or 3 little trolls running around, those coupons can be better. That's right, better than a 4 or 5 hour part-time job a week. You can save more money, and you do it at your own leisure. Do it at 2 o'clock in the morning. Who's going to know you're out there snipping? Get it done. How many labels do you read? Most of us are influenced more by advertising than they are by content. Yeah, there's 4 things on the shelf. We've heard of 3 of them. We've never heard of the 4th. We don't even give the 4th guy a shot. Take a look. I'm not going to suggest that you shouldn't buy things that are advertised. You know better than that. but take a look at the labels. It may very well be the generic brands are similar to what you're paying double for a brand name. Now, don't go out and buy a case of generic. Buy one can. Some of the stuff is really good, some of it's terrible. I mean, some of it you wouldn't feed to your dog if you dislike the hound. You don't buy that. But buy one can. Now, I have found certain things generic are just fine. But very candidly, some of the vegetables I just can't get past. They're inconsistent. And yet, canned fruits, generic canned fruits, I found to be very, very good for the most part. And it may very well be, by the way, that they're the exact same product with a different label that have been private labeled by the same manufacturer of the brand that you've come to love and know. In short, experiment. You're going to lose a few, but you may gain a bunch. I'm the father of 5 young adults, but I remember very vividly when they were very small. They had one thing in common. They had appetites like elephants. I mean, they could put the groceries away in a frightening fashion. And you're talking about a guy who had a kid that's a freshman in college, one is a junior, one is a senior. Oversexed college student, you say, well, that may be, but they had to be fed. And one of the things that we did well was buying in bulk. Yeah, we used to go buy wholesale. We'd go to a wholesaler and buy a case of this, 2 cases of that. You say, I can't afford to do that. I want you to do the arithmetic on this one, children. Suppose you went to the supermarket and you know that you use, we'll say a 6-pack of some type of soda that costs $2.50 a 6-pack. But there it is on sale. You say, wow, on sale. But golly, I don't have $2. Another $2 to buy one. Well, you get out of your savings account, you take out $2. Well, today's rates, you have something in the order of, let's say 4%. We're going to be generous. You wouldn't get that much. So that means you're going to get 8 cents interest a year. So if you keep it there for something in the order of 6 years, you're going to get 48 cents compounded, round numbers, a half a buck for 6 years. But if you take $2 out of your savings account and buy an extra package of soda at $2 rather than $2.50, you made a half a dollar, not in 8 years or 7 years. You made a half a dollar in 7 days. I mean, that's hundreds of % return on capital. 50 cents isn't very much. But I remember somebody running for office one time, and this lady said something to the effect that, I don't understand millions, but I understand 50 cents in a dollar like any housewife, and you add enough of those up and they become millions. She was elected in a landslide because she was right. Watch the half a dollars and the dollars. Why would you leave that money in the bank for 6 years to earn 50 cents when you can earn it in the shopping cart in a week? Buy smart, buy in bulk. Oh yeah, you're not going to like this very much, gentlemen, and some of you ladies, but why not think about carrying your lunch in a brown paper bag? Okay, put it in a briefcase. I mean, I don't want you to be disgraced when you get on the subway or on the bus, but I'll tell you something. You can pack a lunch for 75 cents or a buck that would cost you $6 or $7 to go out to the local store and buy. All right, I'll compromise. 1 day a week, go out and buy what you want. 4 days a week, lug the lunch. I mean, you tell your kid, well, you can't eat in the cafeteria every day. I'm going to pack your lunch. Are you better than he? Well, yes, I guess you are a little bit better. The fact is, there's a ton of money to be saved, and let's face it, you can eat a lot smarter. Yeah, with a lot less calories by doing it in the brown paper bag. It's no disgrace today. It's just plain smart. You know one of the biggest chewer-uppers of your dollar? It's your automobile. Yeah, your wheels. Huh. Now, we can talk about buying a car and the attendant expenses and whatever, and we're going to get into that sort of thing somewhere along the line. But let's talk about the day-to-day expenses when it comes to automobiles. First of all, and I must tell you, I do not do this myself now. I will the next time out. In most cases, it doesn't pay to buy premium gasoline. Most new cars can burn and work on regular very well. Now, there's an exception, as I said. I've been driving the same, Mr. Cheapo, parsimonious again. I've been driving the same car for 5 years. There's 154,000 miles on it. I've always used premium gas. The engine runs like a clock. I'm not about to, it ain't broken, I'm not going to fix it. I am not going to start putting regular gas in that automobile today. But the next one I buy, when I rent a car, and I rent Cadillacs and Lincolns and that kind of a premium car, when I rent them, do you think I put in high-test gas? No, I look for the least expensive non-leaded gas they have available, and those cars seem to run just fine if they're tuned up on those things. If you find that your car is pinging a little on the cheapest gas, then move up one level. But on balance, there's something in the order of 25 cents a gallon difference between regular and premium. 20-gallon tank, you do the arithmetic. It may be throwing a ton of money away. Insurance on your car. We could spend a lot of time on this, but on balance, there's no reason in the world to have collision or comprehensive on a car that's worth less than $3,000. I'm not going to tell you how old it should be, but if the car is worth less than $3,000, by and large, you are spending too much money for insurance. Look at it this way. You buy a $15,000 car. Let's assume the insurance premium for the sake of discussion is $300. That car goes down to $3,000 in value. $3,000 is 20% of $15,000. Well, do you think the insurance company is going to reduce your premium by 80%? Well, obviously not. So it becomes a much poorer buy the less the car is worth. Put it another way, assume that you have, pick a number, a $300 deductible on your car. $300 to $15,000 potential loss is relatively small. $300 to a $3,000 maximum loss, that's all the car is worth, is 10%. Yet, does the insurance company give you a break on that? No, bad deal. But when you get to liability insurance, you say, well, look, Bruce, you're a rich man. Well, that's just not true. Comfortable maybe, but not rich. But anyway, I don't need a lot of insurance. Well, sure you do, for two reasons. One, socially responsible. If you go out and cause a lot of damage, I would hope that you'd want the money available to you to take care of it, at least in dollars. That means carrying enough liability insurance. And secondly, the fact that you're not worth $1 million does not preclude you being sued successfully for $1 million. If they are successful, you have two choices. Pay the rest of your life or go through a bankruptcy. And let's face it, I don't think you want to do either one of those things. For a few bucks, you carry the appropriate liability insurance, and then you have your liability insurance augmented by an umbrella policy for at least an extra $1 million. I suggest 2 or 3. In most jurisdictions, the coverage is very inexpensive, and you'll sleep a whole lot better. When you're buying a car, if you can afford a brand new car, God bless you, go for it. Unhappily, a lot of people buying new cars truly cannot afford them. I mean, the experience is excruciating. They finance them for 5 years, which I think is always a mistake. They wind up being upside down for a substantial period of time. What does that mean, upside down? It means you owe more on the car than it's worth. You say, what do I care? I'm driving a car. I'll tell you what you care about. You're hurtling down the highway, minding your own business, 100% right, and a truck cuts you off, and your car is totaled. Thank God nobody is hurt. The insurance company for the trucker comes in and says, we're going to pay you for that car, Mr. Williams. You say, terrific. Well, let me say, I owe $5,000. He said, we're not going to pay you, Mr. Williams, for what you owe. That car's worth $3,000. And by golly, you're going to get every cent you're entitled to, $3,000. But what about the $5,000 they owe the finance company? It's your problem. That's what upside down is all about. So not only do you not have a car, but you got to find a way to ante up another $2,000 to the finance company. On top of that, now you got to go out and make payments on another new car. If you cannot pay the car off in 3 years, you can't afford it. But how about some alternatives? Do you know what a program car is? Yeah, program car. No, it's not something that you win on Wheel of Fortune. A program car is a car that has been through the rental process or leasing process. Then it is recycled back to the manufacturer, who makes it available to his dealers. And if the dealers turn them down, then the rental car companies are allowed to sell them direct. Let me give you a little inside information on how rental car companies worked and why they had the cars available and why program cars are available. Tuck this away. It may be of value to you one time or other. Let's assume a car is worth $20,000. A rental car company gets the car at a substantial discount. One of the reasons is because most rental car companies of substance are partially or entirely owned by manufacturers. Is what a miracle this is. They feature a certain kind of car, of course, because that company owns a big chunk of the rental car company. What they would do is they would sell the car at substantially under the wholesale price. The rental car company run them a very short 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 miles. Now they got a used car. They could sell the car for exactly what they paid for it, $20,000, because they got such a bargain. So the only cost to the rental car company was the cost of the money they invested in the car for the 3,000 or 4,000 miles, and that's why they could rent the car so inexpensively, which is a good deal for us. But the dealers, understandably, were very upset. You could buy a rental car for less money than the dealer could buy it for. As a consequence, people were buying tons of these recycled rental cars and killing the dealers. And you can't hate the dealers for being upset. They went to the manufacturers and said, enough is enough, as I would have done had I been a dealer. So the system was changed. The cars were run for more miles, but still not a lot of miles. They are recycled back to the manufacturer, who offers them to his dealers at auction. That's why they're called program cars, through this program. Those that are not picked up that way are retained by the rental car companies, and they in turn sell them off. But that means their inventories are very, very much lower than they used to be. Are program cars a good deal? In my opinion, you bet your life. I have recommended to my children. Why? Because they want to get the most bang for their buck. You're buying a low-mileage, well-maintained automobile at substantially under the cost of a new car. Your car is a major expense in its operation. Do you have any idea how many miles you put on there unnecessarily? How many trips do you make to the store that could have been consolidated into one? First of all, your time has a value. You save that. And secondly, the toughest miles of all are that mile and a half to the grocery store, a mile and a half back. Do what you can to consolidate. And there's a little bit of planning. When you're loaded with dough, you can stop the planning. But you know what's going to happen? By the time you're loaded, it'll be so part of your life, and the habits will be so firmly established that you'll continue. That's a pretty good idea.
The Bruce Williams series continues on cassette number 2.
Let's talk a little bit about expenses around the house. The obvious and the less obvious. When you bought your home, did you have to buy PMI, private mortgage insurance? A lot of us did. I certainly did on one of my homes. Private mortgage insurance is a fancy way of saying you hired an insurance company to co-sign your loan. You didn't have a big enough down payment. The bank was a little nervous, so they said, look, you're a nice guy, Williams, but 10% just is not going to do it. We have to have a minimum of 20% down, but not to worry. We have an insurance company that will guarantee that if you go bad, you don't pay us, and we take a beating up to 20%, they will pay the difference. That's called private mortgage insurance. It's just a fancy way of saying you've got a father in the insurance business who's willing to co-sign for you. A ton cheaper to get your real father to do the job. But if you have to get PMI, so be it. But PMI can go away. Now, there are two ways you can buy that, by the way. You can pay one big premium up front. It's over. Now, that may be smart if it's going to be in place for a long time, but I don't recommend that. The other way is to pay a monthly premium, plus you have to pay some money up front. But once your equity in the house reaches a little over 20%, now that can happen in a bunch of ways. One, the property goes up. You know, from my lips to God's ears, I hope it happens. It's not happening so swell in most parts of the country, but it could. Second thing is you might have done a little do-it-yourself work. You've added a porch, a deck, a pool, finished off the basement, added to the value of your house. Well, if an appraisal will show that you now own over 20% of the house, in most instances, if you apply to your lender, you can make the PMI go away. Now, it won't go away until there's an appraisal done at your expense, an application made also at your expense. But if you can eliminate $30 or $40 a month premium that's doing you absolutely no good, go for it. But the best of my knowledge, nobody's ever going to come to you and say, oh, here's what you should do to make it go away. Why should they? It's up to you to know, and when the time arrives, do it. This one I walk on very, very fine, thin ice. I am gingerly trotting where angels fear to tread. I'm going to talk about debt consolidation just for a moment. The rascals in Washington have been trying to borrow themselves to prosperity for at least 200 years, and they've failed on every occasion. Having said that, there still is some good logic in consolidating debt. If you got a ton of credit card stuff out there at 19, 20, 21%, clearly there is cheaper money available. Even signature loans from your local bank, or maybe more important, a home equity loan. Now most, not all, but most home equity loans are tax deductible, unlike consumer debt. But what bothers me about recommending any type of home equity loan to consolidate debt is simple. Here we go. What's that D word altogether? Discipline. Most home equity loans are set up for a minimum of 5 years, 60 months. And the problem with this whole scenario is simple. I don't want you borrowing money for 60 months for clothing, for vacations, all of the reasons that you're in at that high card debt. Now, I'll help you out and let you go for a year or two, but you can't borrow the money for a year or two. That's all right. What you do is you get a home equity loan with no prepayment penalty. Repeat that. A home equity loan with no prepayment penalty, and have the discipline to pay it off in a year to two. If you have that discipline, fine. Otherwise, pay the higher interest, which is tax deductible. You got yourself in, get yourself out. But the last thing you ought to be doing is paying off a home equity loan for 5 years for that great meal that you had on the last vacation. That is fiscal nonsense. I could say probably fiscal insanity. The discipline that you are going to develop will help you pay it off in a year or two. I want you to get at least, and this is tough, 2, possibly 3 estimates before you allow contractors to do the work on your home. Don't be so surprised if the prices vary dramatically. Now, why could that be? You want to have, well, we'll say 5 floors taken down with a sanding machine and 2 or 3 coats of material put on top and whatever, and you call 3 different guys and there could be as much as $500 or $600 difference in their price. How can that be? Is one of them a rip-off artist? No, not necessarily. You see, the first guy that you called may have more work than he can handle, but he doesn't want to blow you off because, after all, 6 months from now, you may call him back if he's been pleasant to you. So what he does is he gives you what's called a highball number. He gives you the highest price that job could possibly command. If, in fact, you go for it, well, that's money from home. He'll do the job, but he's really not very hungry. The guy with the middle range is doing pretty well, but he's got plenty of work for his guys. Not enough to throw business away, but still not enough to be hungry, and he'll give you the middle price. The last guy, for whatever reason, the last week or so, things have been kind of quiet. He's still got a payroll to meet. He doesn't want to lay people off because they're not going to be around when the work is there. He gets his pencil out, and he gets you the best possible price. Now, you can put those 3 people into a hat, scramble them up, and you're liable to have in altogether different positions the next time out. The guy gave you the best price, all of a sudden has more work than he can handle. He'll give you the higher price the next time. It doesn't mean, in most cases, somebody's out to beat you or cheat you. But let's face it, you want to find Mr. Hungry, not Mr. Fatty in this deal. And the only way that's going to happen is to go out and require 2 or 3 or more estimates on the job. Remember back when you were a kid? Shut those lights off! I can hear my father now. As fast as I'd snap them on, he was right behind me, snapping them off. You know why? Because he was paying the bills. Well, having been a father, I've played both roles and snapped off the lights. But truly, if you're on that short line, it really pays to conserve energy. I'm talking about heat. You don't have to have the house cranked up to 85 in the wintertime. And clearly it's not necessary, maybe nice, to use central air and bring your house down to 65 on the dog days of summer. Be comfortable, but don't go crazy. You have any idea how much your television, your radio, how much electricity, how much energy that can eat up when it's sitting there grinding away with nobody home? Not to mention the fact that it gives those appliances a much shorter life. They only have so many hours of operation left in them. You'd be surprised if you're really aware of energy consumption. How about this? When you think about taking a shower, are you getting rid of energy? Well, you certainly are. Why? Because it costs money to heat the water. So if you take a shower, get wet, turn it off, soap up, rinse off, and everybody in the family does that, not only do you save a precious resource, that's water, but you also save a ton of energy costs. Even if your water comes out of a well and you don't pay for it, as such, you still pay for the pump that gets it out. But it certainly does cost you to have that heater down in the basement, cranking out the BTUs. A little simple Navy shower. And the guys in Navy know what I'm talking about. There's very little fresh water, so they can only soap up for a short period of time. Just get yourself good and wet, turn the shower off. Leisurely get yourself soaped up, shampooed up, and so forth. Turn it back on again. Oh, be careful you don't scald yourself. And you'll be amazed how much energy as well as water you can save. Insulating the home. If you have an older home, it truly bears insulating. Now, here's a little test you can do on a cold night, but I want you to do this only with one other person there, because this can be a little bit dangerous, understand that. And maybe even have a fire extinguisher handy. but walk around near the doors with a candle in your hand, with a fairly decent-sized wick exposed. And you get near the doors, the jambs, the windows, and you're going to watch that, literally, the flame almost gets sucked into the crack. What does that tell you? It means you're doing your best to do the impossible. That's to heat the outdoors. Heat is being sucked out of your house. And put another way, if you could see it, what you really see is dollar signs being sucked out of your house. It doesn't cost a whole bunch to get down to your friendly hardware store and buy all manner of stripping, caulking, and whatever. Now, there's a bad side to all this, which we found out about. In the older homes, frequently, if you're in the right part of the country, there was no problem with radon, because radon, which is a natural substance that's formed in the earth, came in through your basement and out through the same cracks. Well, you seal up the cracks, and suddenly the radon becomes a problem in your home. You have to either ventilate your basement or in some other fashion get the air moving down there. Just another, we create one problem by solving another, but you really owe it to yourself to insulate your home. You want to take a look at the walls. Yeah, if it's necessary, drill a little hole in there. Many older homes simply weren't insulated. The reason for that was also simple. Energy was so cheap, it just didn't pay to insulate these older homes. Well, today, in the high cost of energy era, it certainly does pay. Now, until you know what you got, there's no way in the world you know what the cure is going to be. Check the attic out. If you don't see at least 4 to 6 inches up between the rafters of a good solid insulation, next weekend, instead of going to the film, get yourself up in the attic and insulate that thing. Your house will be cooler in the summertime and warmer in the winter, and you can take that one to Barclays. If there is ever an area that needs cost containment, it's the cost of good health, medical expenses. There are all manner of insurance plans available. I hope for your sake that you are covered by one or more of these. Most are company paid, but many of us have to carry our own and pay for our own. But be that as it may, one of the problems with our current medical system, when there's a third-party payee, in other words, an insurance company pays, is people who don't care. Yeah, they say, what difference does it make the insurance company's paying? Well, you ought to care, because sooner or later you're going to pay. Let's talk about prescriptions just for a moment. Now, maybe you have a prescription plan with your policy, but still, why not consider generic prescriptions? Now, not every case they don't apply. Talk to your physician. Check with your pharmacist. In many cases, when buying a generic drug, the quality is precisely the same and anywhere from 20 to 75% less expensive. But underscore, this is a professional judgment. Don't go off and do it by yourself. Talk to your physician. Talk to your pharmacist. In some cases, very candidly, I want to go with the brand. In other cases, generic will do just fine. And of course, most pharmacies are very, very competitive today. Take a look at the coupons they're issuing. Many different stores offer a bonus on their competitors' coupons. I'm not 100% persuaded I agree with that, but that's another program. You may as well take advantage of it. In short, when buying medical supplies, like anything else, shop and shop and shop. Don't run off to your physician every time you got a hangnail. First of all, maybe you can get a consultation by telephone. Busy physicians don't object to that. They really don't want you running in with absolutely nothing wrong because you take their time away from patients who really require their care. And oftentimes, if you don't call too regularly, a physician is very happy to give you a recommendation over the telephone. Use good judgment before racing off to the emergency room. Now, that doesn't mean you should ignore an injury, but on the other hand, oftentimes I have gone down with someone who did require treatment, and there are people just cluttering things up at 2 o'clock in the morning with the most pedestrian type of illness. Just good judgment. And again, emergency room treatments often are very, very expensive. You might choose to investigate the HMO option, Health Maintenance Organization, because remember a moment ago I talked about PLM, preventative line maintenance? Well, the most important preventative maintenance should be you, your body. Most of us abuse our bodies. I mean, we abuse them with cigarettes and alcohol and maybe drugs. We don't get enough sleep. We worry too much. We don't get enough exercise. I mean, the list is almost endless. Well, you abuse your body, you're going to pay for it. You pay for it now or pay for it later. Well, that's the basis, at least in theory, of the HMO, the Health Maintenance Organization. The idea is that they will make health maintenance reasonably priced, where you can see a physician before things don't get so bad that a hospitalization is necessary. That's the theory. Now, an HMO in many cases will work, depending on you. In many cases, people will find them a little too impersonal. While you do get your own physician, the turnover in HMOs is substantially higher than you'll find in private practice. As a consequence, while you do have your own physician, you're going to find that often your physician left for private practice and been replaced by someone else. You'll also find a clinic-type environment that many people are not comfortable with. On the plus side, there's always somebody on call, always somebody available to you. If you're into a private practice, even though they keep at least one of the guys and gals on call, it's much more difficult to reach them than it is the HMO. I would suggest that you investigate HMOs. They are truly not for everybody. They're not for me. I was involved in an HMO for a while, and frankly, the clinic atmosphere just didn't do it for me. I have a close friend who thinks it's the best thing since ice cream. Is he right and am I wrong? I don't know. I don't think it's a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of what works best for you. But you're not going to know what works best for you unless you investigate it. And no one can do it for you. You've got to do it. How about the general expenses, the stuff that we all run into in life? Now, if I could give you a complete list, I wouldn't even speak to you. Serious. There's no way in the world that anybody give you a complete list, but just let's examine a few of these. When you travel, do you book your reservations in advance? Well, yes, sometimes, and no, sometimes. Very frankly, under most conditions. Now, we're not talking about high season in Puerto Rico, as an example. Though even there, I'd be tempted to do what I'm about to say. I make a reservation for one day. One day. When I get there, I shop around. I don't want to get off the plane and have no place to sleep. Somehow or other, sleeping in the airport or whatever doesn't do it for me. But almost invariably, when I'm on site, I can cut a better deal than I cut on a telephone. So I make the airplane reservations coming and going. I will inquire about discounts. You have a fat person's rate? How about a guy with glasses rate? Corporate rate? Weekend special? Let me tell you about a weekend. How about this? This is true story, kids. And this is one of those deals you got to ask or you don't get. I used to stay at a particular hotel regularly before I'd catch an early morning flight. And they had a special rate. It was like their $69 flyaway rate, ordinarily $125 a night to stay in a hotel. And I stayed there fairly often. Well, I got there one day, and as circumstances would have it, the need for me to leave that day disappeared. I did have to stay in the area, and I was going to get a flight the next morning. So far, so good. So I go downstairs, and I said to the lady, I'd like to extend my stay. Certainly, Mr. Williams, it'll be $125. I said, well, wait a minute. What about the $69 rate? Oh, she said, that's only good for one night. Any night? Yeah. I said, fine, I'll check out, please. Thank you very much. Now I want to check back in. Of course, $69. Now, was she trying to beat me? No. But it never occurred to her to check out and check back in. You got to ask. Anybody who pays a rack rate at a hotel today, that's a rack rate can be compared accurately to a full coach fare rate. Well, recently they tracked full coach fares. Only 6% of the people in the whole country flew full coach. And I don't know what they were thinking about. Why would you pay rack rate in a hotel? Right now, the hotels are overbuilt and will be for the next decade. That means there's a surplus of rooms. Now, you're going to check into New York City in the middle of the Democrat or Republican convention, forget about it. You're not going to get anything but the highest rates. I mean, that's understandable. I was in Dallas here not too long ago, and I did my usual routine. I walked in a hotel where I generally stay, and the guy said, I'm sorry, we haven't got a thing available. I'm ready to negotiate on a Friday night, and he has nothing available. How come? There's a convention there that night. I got out in the rental car, drove 2 miles to another hotel. I got a $300 a night room, or I should say suite, for less than $100. Why? I walked into the hotel 11 o'clock, and I said, well, I don't think that suite's going to get rented tonight, is it? The guy looked at me and said, I don't think so. I said, well, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll give you $95 for it. Okay. You don't get unless you ask. Did you know you can negotiate rental car rates? This is true. You walk up to the rental car company. The lady or the gentleman behind the counter has the authority in most cases to upgrade you, to give you extras, to cut the rate on the next most expensive car. In the trade, they are not called clerks or agents. They're called salespeople. Their job is to sell you something you didn't come in for, and they have the ability to negotiate rates. You don't have to pay the top rate. And they're there, and they get paid a commission, by the way. So what do? You protect yourself by at least reserving a subcompact. That way you don't have to walk to the next stop. But if you get any kind of a break, unless it's high season, they will try to upgrade you. Well, look, you're a hard sell. I mean, look, I just rented a subcompact, or I got an Escort. What do you mean a Cadillac? What do you mean a Lincoln? Well, by the time you get done, you're going to get the same Cadillac or Lincoln for 20 or 25% less than if you just called ahead and made the reservation. Once again, baby, if you don't ask, you don't get. Discount houses leave me a little bit on edge, because at most discount houses, service is not a word they can even spell, let alone provide. On the other hand, in many discount houses, I'm talking about places where you walk in and you serve yourself, these big plumbing places, building supply and whatever. It's very difficult in many cases to find a clerk who knows which end of the store is different from the other. But on the other side of that, if you can find what you're looking for, it is frequently much less expensive. If you're prepared to put up with that, and you don't mind a bit of a delay at the check-in. Don't you love it when you get behind a guy who has 400 2x4s at a checkout counter on some portable cart? I mean, I've seen it. I went in one day, I couldn't believe my eyes. Here was a guy buying, I don't know how many dozen 8-foot sections of 6-foot fence. And he's got them stacked up on these little dollies at a checkout counter. It's like he's buying Hershey bars. Now, if you don't mind that time, you'd be amazed at how much you can save in that environment. But please don't look for service. Same thing is true with clothing. You walk into a discount clothing store, about the only person around is the guy working the register, and there aren't many of those. On the other hand, if you know clothes, you know quality, you really can save a ton of money. You're going to see a lot of stuff on sale. It's no bargain if you don't need it. And that's where they get you. They put stuff up there. Why do you suppose, when you go in a supermarket, that companies pay tons of money extra? You take a look at the end of the aisle. There's cookies there. Now, you know you're in the soap department. What in the world are cookies doing stacked up there 5 feet high? I'll tell you why. Because the companies know if you stack the stuff up there 5 feet high, you're in the soap department. You never even went in the cookie department, but boy, there are all those cookies there. Wing, 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 3 packets in the cart before you know what happened. You didn't need cookies. You didn't want cookies. You didn't go there to buy cookies. You went to buy detergent because your underwear is gray. But you bought cookies. I don't care how cheap it is. If you don't need it, you don't want it, it is not a bargain. I remember one time going to an auction. I used to like to go to auctions when I was a little younger. And I'm watching this auction. And I got separated from my wife. And I'm crawling under barbed wire. It was an old farm. And I'm watching the auctioneer. And he's going and he's selling flat irons. There were 6 flat irons in this lot. And, you know, it's $8, $2, $2, $3, sold! I said, what damn fool bought those? To Williams! That damn fool is my wife, is what I said. We didn't need 6 flat irons. We never used the 6 flat. And listen, I'm not picking on the lady. I mean, my goodness gracious. I have made such foolish buys as to eclipse those flat irons, I mean, completely. But the point is, they were a bargain. We didn't need flat irons that day. I mean, when was the last time you ironed your clothes? We didn't need that many door stops. We didn't have 6 doors in the whole house. But we bought them because they were a bargain. I guess we've all been guilty of that. When you go in to buy something on credit, the guys and gals love to sell you credit life insurance because it is a very profitable item. Don't do it. It is almost never wise to buy credit life insurance from the person selling the product. Why so? Because it's very expensive. But there's some exceptions to that too. Oftentimes you can get insurance under those conditions that you couldn't ordinarily buy. If you're in poor health, where they won't sell you insurance, by all means take the insurance when the credit insurance is offered to you. Oftentimes it's without a physical examination. Oftentimes it's a couple of perfunctory questions. Then, if something does happen, your debt is paid. If you're healthy, don't buy credit insurance. If you need more life insurance, buy. It's like the people that go to the airport. I mean, I chuckle. Now, I fly a great deal. But you see people furtively going up to the counter. Used to be in the machines, but I haven't seen a machine in a long time. Buying life insurance. Oh my goodness, we're going to cheat death again. We're going to go hurtling through the sky 5 miles above the earth. You're safer than in your mother's arms. Think about this. If you took a child, the day it was hatched, stick them on a commercial airplane, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. If the kid survived the food, which is unlikely, he would statistically die in an airplane crash at age 82. Now, those are the odds. And yet people are scurrying around the airport buying insurance. The fact is, if you need life insurance for that airplane ride, need is the operative term, then you need a lot more life insurance. Go buy it. But don't throw it away on trip insurance. And oh yes, if you use the appropriate credit card to charge your ticket, you'll get at least $100,000 to $500,000 worth of free insurance. And on top of that, many travel agents throw an extra $100,000 in just to encourage you to use them for your travel agent. Point is, know what you need. Don't go for these specials. How about negotiation? In a different life, maybe you were born to a culture where everybody negotiated. Interestingly, in our culture, there are two things that almost everyone negotiates: real estate and automobiles. We handle. But there's nothing to stop you from negotiating other matters. Now, you can't walk into the department store or the grocery store, but if you're dealing with other enterprises, why not ask? Let's face it, if you don't ask, you're never going to get. Checkbooks. Drives me to distraction to watch the way some people abuse checking privileges. First of all, one of the things I've done this ever since I was a shaver, I have not had one of these fold-up jobbies that you can shove into your pocket or purse. My checkbooks invariably have been and are desk-type checkbooks. You don't shove that in your pocket, not on your best day. I mean, you couldn't put that thing in a knapsack. I do carry one check for emergencies out of the back of the book in my pocket. But note that term. I carry that check for emergencies, and frequently I have to throw it away. It becomes so dog-eared. People drive me to distraction that first write checks like crazy, and they can't figure out what they wrote them for. And finally, they spend money they couldn't afford because, after all, I just wrote a check. Why is it a check doesn't seem like cash? Well, the folks in Las Vegas and Atlantic City and Monte Carlo before them figured that out. People will spend a whole lot more if they're using chips, correctly called checks, than real money. If they had to put $100 out there, their blood would turn to lime jelly. But to throw out a black check on the table, big deal. Same thing is true when you write those little colored pieces of paper. If you had to put $100 in singles, you might really think about the purchase, but put on a card. Let me write a check. One of the greatest ways to stop that check abuse is get yourself a desk checkbook. And then one person is in charge, not two. This way you know that Mary Jane or John is in charge of the family exchequer. They pay the bills. They disperse the money. Now, who should do this, the husband or the wife? You're not going to like this, guys. And some of you gals may not like this either. But you figure out who's best able to handle it. Usually one or the other is better able, more disciplined. Here we go again, that D word, more disciplined. That's the individual to handle the money. If you can't figure out who, hey, you take it for the first quarter, I'll take it for the second, you take it for the third, I'll take it for the fourth, and then we'll analyze who did better. And that person becomes permanent custodian. I had a lady on my program here not too long ago. She said, Bruce, I don't know what to do. I'm always broke. I said, well, talk to me, baby. Well, I'm 30, she's 32 years old, something like that. She make a good living, single, just buying a house, but I'm barely making the payments. I said, well, where in the world is the money going? She said, well, I have 7 brothers and sisters, 18 nieces, 19 nephews, couple grandparents. She said, I'd like to get them nice things. In short, she was giving away everything she had. I'm never going to tell you don't be generous. But on the other hand, did you ever watch people at Christmas time? Sometimes it's like a feeding frenzy. They get into the department store, they get into the toy store, and they go absolutely bananas, nuts, and otherwise undisciplined. And of course, most of it's done on credit. I am in a retail business, and I can tell, so help me. You don't have to tell me the date before Christmas, because the closer we get to Christmas, the more plastic we see. People are out of cash, they can't write a check, and they're busy charging. Don't go nuts. Be reasonable. What can you afford to give? And that's as much as you give. Nobody can ask you to give or should require you to give more than you can afford. Nobody should lay guilt on you if you can afford to give little. But don't impoverish yourself, particularly for things, for the most part, that are really unnecessary. Establish a relationship with many merchants. In other words, there are certain types of merchants one uses. A dry cleaner, that means the shirts and laundry and the rest of that sort of thing. A druggist and so forth. Do your best to give all your business to the one merchant and then say to this guy or gal, look, I'm a very good customer. Don't you think that I'm entitled to some kind of a discount for customer loyalty? What do you think frequent flyer programs are all about? Major businesses have learned it pays to reward the loyal customer. And if you're dealing in a service where there's no rewards, once again, do it nicely, but you're never going to get unless you ask. Charity is always a problem. I mean, let's face it, there's always somebody rattling a can, asking you to buy an ad, a worthy cause. Set aside a reasonable amount of money for charity. When that money is gone, all you can say to the person is, I've allocated so many dollars for charity, and happily or unhappily, those monies are gone. Otherwise, this can be a hemorrhage that you really can't afford.
The Bruce Williams series continues. Please turn to side B.
Attorneys. I keep insisting that you guys and gals use attorneys, and you keep insisting you can't afford it. Can you afford hospitalization? Can you afford medical expenses? Well, one of the things you might want to consider, if you don't use attorneys really regularly, as I do because I'm involved in many businesses, but if you don't regularly, you might want to consider a prepaid legal plan. It is an idea whose time has long since come. It's no more or less than a hospitalization plan for your wallet. You carry it on your body, why not carry it for your legal life? Let's face it, in today's world, you may not have consulted an attorney in the last couple of years, but I'll guarantee this, you probably should have. Now, I don't make the rules. Don't shoot me. I'm only the messenger. But there are some very good prepaid plans. Plans where you can call an unlimited number of times, and that very possibly can cure the problem, just making the telephone call. You also are allowed a certain number of consultations and reduced charges beyond that. Investigate. Not all legal plans are alike. You may get one through your benefits plan at work. It may be there's a menu plan at work. In other words, if you and your spouse are employed, if hospitalization comes from one spouse, why have it duplicated or replicated at the second spouse's place of employment? You may be allowed a menu plan. Simply put, if one spouse has hospitalization at work, there's no reason to duplicate or replicate it for the second spouse. Why not spend those dollars, if you're allowed to, on other things that are necessary, like a prepaid legal? Investigate them, but really, it is an idea whose time has come, and you'll feel a lot more comfortable knowing that good advice is merely a telephone call away. Of course, use people like travel agents and other professionals. First of all, in many cases, there's no charge. Travel agents, example of that. They get paid to shop for the best price. They want you to keep coming back to them, and the way to do that is to give you good service. Most of us don't know the right questions to ask, and unless you ask the right question, you get a bad answer. Now, what I've tried to give you is just a flavor on cutting expenses. It is part of the menu, and it's a cornerstone of any financial program. But when I say cornerstone, that troubles me, because I really ought to be able to say cornerstones, because there are so many things that make this thing work. Now, we're going to introduce one that is going to cause you great pain, consternation, and suffering. But if you use it properly, let me tell you something. It can save you a ton. What am I talking about? Hang on to your hats, kids, because we're going to talk about your budget. When most people are asked, and I have asked this question thousands of times, literally, Well, where in the world does your money go? I mean, you told me you're broke, you're making a fairly good income. You know what they'll say? I don't know where it goes. All I know is that by payday I haven't got a kopeck. I don't have a sou, not a ruble. Well, that has got to stop. Really. First of all, we've included a budget worksheet. Now, don't be terrorized. I want you to take it out. You're going to have to take out your checkbook, and you and your spouse are going to have to fill the budget sheet in. We're going to look at all the expenses. The troublesome part of this equation is that ordinarily you're going to skip a bunch of stuff. So the next thing I'm going to recommend to you is really going to be painful. This is going to hurt like cramming a size 11 foot into a size 9 shoe and then going on a 20-mile hike on pavement. Yeah, it's painful. I want you and every adult member, an adult means anybody who can spend money over 6 or 7, to carry a little diary. Oh, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, just a little notebook for the next 30 days. And every single penny, I'm talking about every time you put a coin in a parking meter, buy a newspaper, have lunch, go to the theater, you write it down in a book. That is a lousy experience, I can tell you, because I did it. And I didn't like it very much, and furthermore, I didn't like what I found out about myself. But until you can figure out where the money is going, you really can't budget properly. It's a tough exercise. Do it for 30 days. And then you sit down once again with your budget worksheet. There are some expenses you can finesse, and some you can't. You got to make the mortgage payment. There's no question about that. You're stuck into the auto payment. You did it, and you got to make the payments. You got to pay for your insurance. The ordinary things like dry cleaning and all that sort of nonsense, not to mention a few groceries off and on, utility bills and whatever. But even with the utility bills, we've got some options. You can lay off the long-distance calls to Mama, or at least call her during the evening or on Sundays when it's cheaper. You do have options to exercise. But this, if nothing else, is an area where discipline is an absolute 100% requisite. Setting up a budget is simple. Following it is terribly difficult. Now, first of all, you got to figure out what's coming in. Your basic salary, if overtime, if it comes along. Bonuses, I'm a little nervous about. Why? Because bonuses seem to have a habit of stopping just when they're needed the most. Investment income, by all means, include it, but be conservative. Remember, the investment income is subject to all manner of influences, and it could be going down. Of course, rental income if you have some, and if you're on some kind of aid and or alimony or child support, include that in. What we're going to talk about now on the other end is what I call a cookie jar method. You remember your grandmother, or maybe your great-grandmother. She had all these little jars lined up, and when the old man brought the money home, quarter went in jar A, 15 cents in jar B, until the money had accumulated to pay the bill. Well, I don't want you to have cookie jars, but mental cookie jars? Yeah. I guess we call them earmarked funds. Yes. Now, write down your monthly expenses, the ones that you cannot finesse. As much as you possibly can, set down a budget amount for each category. Recognize there's no way under the sun you'll be 100% accurate when it comes to groceries or even some utilities, but you gotta do your best, and you can't cheat yourself. You gotta calculate and recalculate until you get those numbers in line. You got to review the budget, quarterly at least. Keep it on your mind. You see, it's an ever-changing process. It's organic. Example, taxes. The only one way they're going to go, up. That means your escrow account will be increased. Your mortgage payment's going to go up. Your auto insurance, that's probably going to go up as well. And you've got to make your budget change. And it may be that you're going to have to give up something, because you can't do without the insurance, and the tax man must be paid. Here we go. Discipline again. Discipline, discipline, discipline. You can't have everything you want. Kids think they can, but you're an adult. The word is prioritize. You've got to prioritize your purchases, your wants, your needs. Some things you need, some things you want. You may need a pair of shoes. You want an extra shirt. You've got to pay for the gas. You got to pay for the electric. But that new CD player, I'd like to have one too. But maybe sometimes you have to put that aside. That's the discipline of adulthood. Miscellaneous. Boy, will that kill you. I mean, you can bury a lot of stuff under miscellaneous. We used to call it nickel and diming. Now it's $3 and $20, but you know what I'm saying. The nickels and dimes can kill you, just like Our Lady we talked about. enough 50 cents add up to millions. Bookkeeping. Absolutely necessary. Unless you are, well, let's face it, most of us can't keep that much in our head. That's why they sent Al Capone to jail for income tax evasion. He had to have books. Even he had to have books. You need books. Write it down. Oh, yeah, we forgot something in our budget. No, we didn't forget. But there's a bill in there that is probably the most important. And it's the bill that most people don't pay. That's you. Pay yourself first, whether it's 5%, 10%, whatever number you agree on. That money gets cut right off the top of the check. You don't save what is left. You cut it right off the top. Pay you first. I wish somebody had told me that when I was a kid. I'd have a ton of money in the bank. But no, I went the other way. Pay all my bills. If something left over, I'd save it. If nothing left over, paycheck to paycheck, that's okay too. The most important bill to pay is you. Doesn't have to be a ton. Let's say 5%. But a nickel on every take-home dollar gets stashed and is never spent. Well, never's a long time. Try it. Painful, yeah. But I promise you this. Develop that discipline, and you'll be on top of the heap, in that top 3% we spoke of some time ago. We've talked a whole bunch, and we'll continue to talk about credit, mortgages, borrowing, how much is too much, the whole 9 yards. And there are no absolute answers to that. But let's start out with a given. Credit in and of itself does not have polarity. It can be good, can be bad. Just like a knife. You can use it to kill someone or cut cheese. Cutting cheese is desirable. Killing someone is clearly not desirable. A match that can light the fire to warm your hands can burn on your house. Yeah. You have to make a decision as to how to use it. So let's talk a little bit about credit. The biggest piece of financing the average bear will ever get involved with is financing a home. Biggest purchase. It boggles my mind how casually so many people approach what can be the largest transaction of their life. What do I need a lawyer for? Well, I went down to the corner bank and got the mortgage. Hey, you went out and you looked all over the lot. You drove the real estate people crazy looking at houses, and then you just go out and borrow the money willy-nilly. It doesn't make any sense. You shop for the financing as maybe more carefully than you shop for the home, because that's going to be with you just as long as the house will be there, or pretty close to it in any event. Let's assume, for the sake of this discourse, that you have your financing in place. You did the appropriate shopping, get the best possible rate, you didn't pay too many points. Oh yeah, what's a point? Maybe we should define some of these things as we go along. What is a point? A point is a percentage of the mortgage. It can be expressed as interest or as a fee. If they express it as a fee, how do you like this? You can't take it off your taxes until you sell the house and you make a profit. But if it's expressed as interest, you can take it off this year. What does that tell you? Get the points expressed as interest. Simple as that. In any case, let us assume that you have a mortgage in place. The mortgage was competitive when you placed it 2, 3, 5, however many years ago. But suddenly you're reading your local newspaper and there it is. Interest rates have fallen, maybe 2 or 3% below what you are currently paying. Does it pay to refinance? Maybe yes. And then again, maybe no. Here we go with work. You see, nothing is for nothing. You can hire someone to do what I'm describing if you can find the appropriate talented person who's willing to work for you. But I like to think that you're intelligent enough and can handle this. You sit down and you have to answer some questions. Now, some have solid answers and some have somewhat gray answers. For example, if I said to you, what is the interest rate they're offering you? That's easy. Whatever it is, 7.5, 8.5, 9.5, whatever the percentages are. If I said, how many points? Pretty easy question. 2 points, 3 points, 1 point, 1.5, whatever it is. That's 1% of the amount of money that you're choosing to borrow. But then I say to you, how long are you going to stay in the house? You say, wait a minute, what are you talking about? I said, simple question, how long would you stay in the house? Well, I don't know. Could be 3, 4, 5 years. I may get transferred to West Undershirt. Well, you see, that is an important ingredient here, because no matter how big the spread, within reason, 2 or 3 percentage points, and that's a good way to move, In other words, if you're paying 11 and you can get a mortgage for 8, that's a big step, 3%. However, even that's not a good deal if you're planning on moving relatively quickly. So here comes the pain again. You've got to sit down and figure out. Now, I think in terms of graphs in my own mind. No, not giraffes, graphs. In other words, I have a mental picture of this line on a graph, what I'm currently paying, and then a mental picture of the line that I will be paying. Now, someplace in the future, those two lines are going to cross. And when they cross, however many months or years downrange, I know I'm ahead of the game. If you're going to move in a couple of years, even though you're picking up this 2.5, even 3 points on the spread, the likelihood is it will not pay you to refinance because of all the extra costs. For example, when you refinance, you may be required to pay an additional premium on your title insurance. As unjust as it may seem, in many states you got to pay a mortgage tax when you refinance. You will undoubtedly have to pay points to the lender as an additional interest when you refinance. You'll have to talk to your attorney in all likelihood to get all of the ducks lined up, and that can be a bit costly. In short, there are a number of expenses involved, but you add all these up, and you figure out, because of the lesser interest that you'll be paying, when the lines cross. Generally speaking, it's somewhere between, on the short side, 20 months, and the long side, 35, 36 months. But do your homework. Do the numbers. And then you see, is this a good idea to refinance? By and large, a few years ago, I was recommending, if you will, the adjustable rate mortgage. I thought it made a lot of sense then. In the relatively recent times, it seems to me that the fixed rate mortgage is the way to go. Now, will I ever want to go back to the adjustable? Very possibly, depending on the conditions, depending on the availability of money, the economy, and a bunch of other variables. You see, once again, nothing is written in stainless steel or concrete. It is static. What applies today may not apply tomorrow. Before you put the mortgage together, have your tax advisor look it over to be certain it is stated correctly. If he or she doesn't know, hopefully they'll tell you, I don't know, and you'll have to go elsewhere for this information. But it's almost impossible to go back and correct an error once made. Now, if you borrow more than the original balance, it's possible that you can write off the extra amount as regards taxes if you put it into substantial home improvements. Now, that means a new porch, a new drive, or whatever. It doesn't mean, for example, a new stereo system or a TV system. That's not a capital improvement. Now, the improvements have $1 million cap or thereabouts, but for most of us, let's face it, this is not a problem. What you want to do is sit down and find out what the tax consequences as well as the straight dollar consequences are before you make the judgment. Because once again, almost difficult, if not impossible, to go back and correct the error once it has been made. How long should you finance? On balance, go for a shorter mortgage. Push yourself a little. 15 years is what I recommend. Used to be 30, but you see the tax advantages really are disappearing. One of the things we're allowed to deduct still is our interest on our mortgages. But that number is a bit deceptive because if you didn't use the money to pay off the mortgage, you'd invest it someplace. The question is, how much would it earn after taxes, before taxes? Because recognize that even if you're in that top 33% tax bracket, you're still paying 66 cents on every dollar out of your pocket. So don't get into hock and say, wow, I have a great tax benefit. That issue, though, how long you're going to be there, is one that you absolutely must deal with. Simple or as complex as that. Oh, yes. How about these bi-weekly payments or making extra payments on your principal? There are all kinds of guys out there going to sell you programs. Sell you programs to show you how to save all the money. And the arithmetic looks absolutely unassailable. But understand this. In almost every situation, what they avoid is how much would the money that you have prepaid earned for you in other environments. And also understand that if you put it in some other environment, maybe in the stock market, you could lose your shirt. Or you could pick a winner and have your house paid off in 2 years. I'm not suggesting that you try to pick that winner. But what I am absolutely saying is that so many of these programs look so rosy because they overlook what the money would have earned in some other healthy investment climate. I don't know how to overemphasize that. I mean, these prepayment programs that so many guys are hawking have been around, my goodness, certainly for the last 30 or 40 years. They all have the common flaw. Where would the money be if it wasn't used to pay the house off? Having said that, in today's rather unstable world, the idea of owning your house free and clear is kind of a nice goal. It used to be it paid to keep remortgaging and staying hawk. I don't see that being a viable opportunity today. 15-year mortgage, pay it off as quickly as you can. Be certain to get a mortgage with no prepayment penalties, or in the alternative, if that's not possible, one where the prepayment penalties disappear after a relatively short 2 or 3 years. Credit cards, travel and leisure cards, bank cards. Boy, they've got a pocket full of them. You see, credit cards in and of themselves have been around for a long time. Most department stores issued their own cards. And the wise shopper had a whole wallet full of them going back into the 20s and the 30s. When you walked into the department store, you were always asked, cash or charge? And charge meant charge it to my personal account. This story may be apocryphal, but they say it's true. Gentleman was out dining with his business associates, reached into his pocket, and he was obliged to pay the bill, and lo and behold, no money. Forgot his money altogether. Happily, the day was saved because he called his good wife and she raced down with money to cover while he procrastinated over cigars. Cigars and smoking were in vogue at that time. But he got to thinking, if you can walk into a department store and, quote, charge things, why not have a restaurant card that one could charge things on? And Diners Club was born. The idea being that you could walk into any restaurant, or almost any restaurant, and just show your one charge card. Well, it expanded into all manner of other charges. We are familiar with American Express and Visa and MasterCard and Discover Card and a whole bunch of other cards. But they all have one thing in common. They allow you, as an unknown individual with no credential other than a piece of plastic with a name and a code number on it, to be able to be extended credit instantly. Now, that's quite a wonderful thing when you think about it. That little piece of plastic in your pocket is literally acceptable to millions of merchants, known and unknown. The idea of a credit card certainly is worthwhile. Do you ever try to rent a car? No credit card? They look at you like you had some kind of a rare social disease that's communicable. They don't want you. Well, it's understandable. What they're saying is, look, you want us to give you a $10,000 or $15,000 car, and you want to give me $200 deposit. What kind of nonsense is that? I want to know that somebody else thinks you're a solid citizen, and somebody like Visa or MasterCard or American Express, if they think you're good enough, then you're good enough for me. Now, you can fight the system and carry on and hold your breath and turn purple, say, I don't want any credit, and I've never had any credit, and I don't see why they can deny me. You can do that. And there are some automobile rental car companies that will rent to you. But for the most part, they would far prefer to have you use a credit card, and they'll pay the extra expense involved. The same thing is true when you check into a hotel. Sure, they'll take the room rent up front. Or it may be it's what's called a direct bill. Your company is going to be billed directly, but they want an extra little advantage in there in case you charge a dinner or make phone calls or whatever. They want a credit card imprint. When you check out, they'll say, do you want to leave it on your card or pay cash? You might want to give them the cash out of your pocket. The point is, a credit card in today's world is an absolute requisite. And this business of running around saying, I've always gotten a loan out is just foolishness. The same guy that does that would be the same guy that was running around 100 and some odd years ago saying, what do you mean electric lights? Gas was good enough for my mother. And your grandfather, in that case, probably said, what do you mean gas? What's wrong with a candle or a lantern? I mean, you got to move with the times. Credit is absolutely necessary. You don't want to walk around with a pocket full of cash. A credit card works. But a credit card is like the knife we've discussed before or the match. It is not evil of itself, but a credit card can get you into all manner of trouble if it's improperly used. Properly used, it is a useful tool. I have never understood why people walk around with 24 credit cards in their pocket. Oh, it makes me feel good. Better to have one card with a decent credit limit on it Then a dozen cards with $1,000 or less in the aggregate, you get to 10 or 12,000. You say, well, they wouldn't give me 10 or 12,000. Have you asked? I mean, ask. And if they won't give it to you, there's a good chance that maybe you shouldn't have that much credit available to you, but that's a whole other program. I carry 2 credit cards. I carry a travel and leisure card, and I carry 1 bank card. That's it. That'll get me any place I want to go. And I get 2 bills a month instead of getting 4, 5, or 6. No, I do have a number of individual store accounts. For example, I have a Sears card, and I have any number of smaller department store accounts, but I rarely use them. I do have them. I don't pay anything for them. If they had a service charge, you can believe they go back in a heartbeat. But since there is no charge for them, I do have them at my disposal in the event that I need them. But the 2 major cards, 1 travel and leisure and 1 bank card, sit well and serve me very well. You want a red flag wave right in front of your face. If you are paying just the minimum balance on your cards, you are in deep trouble. I have so many people call me on my program and say, well, listen, I've been making the payments. I'm not in default. What do you mean you're making the payments? Well, there's a little number up there in the middle. I paid a minimum. If you're paying the minimum, for all intents and purposes, you are never, ever going to be out of hock. You're a very good credit card customer. I want you to know that. I mean, you're the guys that they want. They don't want guys like me to pay their bill every month because I'm too cheap. I won't pay the interest. I am not a particularly profitable credit card customer on the bank card. The travel and leisure cards, by and large, want you to pay. Not only want, they insist that you pay every month. Do you know the difference between a debit card and a credit card? They look alike, same color sometimes, same company and whatever, but boy, is there a difference. A debit card literally reaches right into your pocket and snaps the money out as you spend it. Now, it's not all bad, but personally, if you're going to have a debit card, why not just have cash? Hand the cash is the same thing. Or, in the alternative, write a check. The only difference is a debit card is acceptable where a check may be not acceptable. Cash, of course, is almost always acceptable. The rental car and the hotel might be the exception to that. But the point being that you don't want to carry cash around, okay, you'll go with a debit card. Personally, I would prefer to put it on a charge card. That way I can review the bill. I've got 25 days to decide whether or not I want to contest the charge. You realize in a debit charge, it's just like handing them cash. Before you're out of the door, the money is out of your pocket. And that's an absolute fact. Remember, there is a major difference. Shop for low interest rates, but don't be fooled by a low interest rate card that posts the purchase immediately or immediately the interest begins. That is a terrible way to go. Surveys have shown that most people never expect to use the credit. That's why they're not put off by the interest rates. They figure they'll pay them on time. But as a practical matter, they don't. The overwhelming majority of people with credit cards pay them off periodically. And you're paying a ton. Used to be guys that collected that kind of interest walked around with ball bats and talked out of the side of their mouth. Now they call them bankers. How about gold cards and other colors? They may be for you and they may not be. One of the major advantages of many of the bank gold cards, as well as some of the travel and leisure cards, is that if you charge an automobile to those cards, they give you, without additional cost, the collision damage waiver, which is a ton of money, sometimes $12 or $13 a day. Multiply that for your 2-week vacation, see what we're talking about. This is the coverage that covers your automobile if you whack in a fender. Now, in most cases, the credit card insurance is called secondary. In other words, if you have collision insurance on your car and it goes with you, they got to pay first. The credit card will pay the deductibles or any extra charges that your own automobile insurance does not cover. In the event that you're overseas, in almost every case, your own insurance does not cover, and at least one card, the American Express card, becomes primary. Do check with your card issuer if you're going overseas, or indeed if you're going to rent a car. Why in the world would you want to pay for collision damage waiver when it's automatically free on your credit card? Suppose you can't get a card. You bruised your credit. Indeed, you've abused your credit. It may be you'll qualify for a collateralized credit card. What is that all about? Simply put, the bank, the lender, could be a savings and loan, whatever, because you see, Visa and MasterCard don't issue credit cards. They license others to issue credit cards. In any event, the bank, the savings and loan, whatever, will issue you a card. You, in turn, must deposit in an interest-bearing account an amount of money equal to the credit line that you want. You want a $1,000 credit line, you got to put $1,000 in their bank. The idea is that you have the versatility of a credit card without having the danger of carrying the cash around. But understand this, if you don't pay your bill, they're going to dip right into your account and take the money, and you cannot withdraw the money as long as the card is available to you. Now, many of the programs now, after a couple of years, if you pay off on time, they'll turn you into a regular credit card customer. And that's what you're trying to do, get back on track. Understand, there's no free lunch. Frequently, there is an application fee. If the credit is granted, you must take it or lose the application fee. And the interest rates can be very substantial. But the way to beat that is simply pay your bills on time. In short, credit cards, credit itself is very much a part of our life. No getting around that. Like any tool, use it wisely, it will serve you well. Don't abuse your credit, but by all means, keep it available. Think of it in some ways as a life raft. You hope your ship doesn't go down, but if the ship is sinking, that credit life raft can keep you alive. You're talking to somebody who has abused credit in the past. I know what it's like to have those guys calling you, when are you going to pay your bills? I've been there. Didn't mean to get there. Maybe I did it innocently. But the fact is, I have been there and I understand how it can happen so easily. Credit takes a long time to build. It can be destroyed overnight. Try not to let it happen to you.
The Bruce Williams series continues on cassette number 3.
All right, campers, listen up. Now, I told you at the outset, this is not supposed to be a happy experience for you. I want it to be a learning experience, but I can't make it fun and games all the time. Some of this stuff is heavy. You're going to have to work at it. You're going to have to listen and suffer through it. But I promise you this, if you pay proper attention, it'll be well worth playing the game. Now, my goal here is to help make me a smarter, better investor and saver. I wish that someone had taken me aside and I'd listened when I was 20, 25, even 30, and just saved, never mind 20%, 10% of my net income. I mean, I would have so much money today, I wouldn't even talk to me, let alone you. But I didn't, and now I have to make up for it in my later years. There's no reason for you to do that. But whatever age you begin, the first step is probably the most important one. So first of all, you're going to have to suffer with me. Let's talk about very elementary stuff. I mean, you may be the greatest surgeon in the world, but there's a distinct possibility when we start talking about investments and whatever, you're somewhere around 3rd or 4th grade. Well, I'm going to do my best to drag you kicking and screaming, maybe at least into the 8th grade. No, I don't want to make you a PhD. I want to acquaint you with some of the terms that you're going to hear over and over. You should understand them, at least in their broad sense. Let's talk about simple definitions. When we talk about an investment, what is it? Simply put, it's a mechanism that helps finance the growth of our economy. The engine, the fuel, investments. That's what capitalism is all about. Now, it helps you put your money. And how do we define money? Canned labor. The money represents work that you have done before. It's a convenient way to take it from one enterprise to another. So you're taking your canned labor or money, and you're putting it into a vehicle that will help other people, capital creation, and also earn you money, a positive return. But understand, all investments don't give you a positive return. If they did, we'd all be wealthy. Now, a lot of folks will say, wow, I invested a lot of money in my car. Well, unless that car is a Duesenberg or some antique automobile, you didn't invest any money. You spent money because it's going to depreciate right down to nothing if you keep it long enough. Oh, I suppose you could argue keep it 50 or 60 years, it'll go back up again, but most of us aren't going to be around that long. The fact is, you'll have to be able to differentiate between what is an investment and what is simply an expense. Now, typical investments, now certainly these are only a few, securities, stocks and bonds, options, All you're doing is you're buying a piece of a company. You actually own a chunk of GE, General Motors, whatever it happens to be, albeit a very small piece, but you own a piece and have all of the rights and privileges that are attached to ownership. That means if the company makes money, you make money. If the company declares a dividend, you get your percentage share. And of course, if they lose money, you could be wiped out completely, either by the stock going down to zip on the market, or in fact, everybody recognizing that the company owes more than it's worth. And the stockholder is the last person to get their money. We can move on to bonds. Bonds are making you a bank. Yes, you become a lender. When you purchase a bond, be it issued by a utility, a municipality, private corporation, you are simply saying, I'm agreeable to loaning you some money for a prescribed period of time at a prescribed interest rate. Now, if the bond goes up in value, you can make money not only on the interest, but because the value of the bond is perceived to be higher. Conversely, if things get tough and interest rates go up, the bond in all likelihood will go down in value. Now, there's a way around this. Hang on until that bond matures. Then you're assured, assuming the company is good that pays it, you're assured to get face value. Equities, simply a piece of the company. Bonds, you are loaning money to someone else. Now, we can get involved in options and puts and calls, but that's pretty sophisticated stuff. We'll leave that for another time. Real property, that's everything we own. Yeah, the real estate, the buildings that are affixed to the land. Now, ordinarily, if you have a mobile home, we don't count that as a fixed asset. It's tangible, but it isn't attached to the ground. But real property, the unimproved property and improved property, which means buildings and whatever. Then you have to take a look at your tangible personal property, all the things that you own in your home, things that have value. And of course, we move on to precious metals if you're hoarding some gold or silver, collectibles. Oh yeah, that Disney memorabilia may be worth a lot of money. Artworks, and sometime the most popular of the latter increase very dramatically in value. Oftentimes in uncertain areas, uncertain times, people flee to collectibles, works of art, metals. Why? Because there is perceived to be an intrinsic value. Let's face it, if you take a bill out of your pocket, that green stuff, you can't eat it, you can't smoke it, can't make love to it. It only has a value as long as the people behind it, in this case our government, are solid. But a tangible item, such as precious metal or a collectible, is perceived to have a value in and of itself, not dependent upon any outside force. Now, there are a number of important factors. First of all, you have to understand when someone talks about a risk factor. How much risk are you comfortable in taking? Visualize a gauge, maybe an old-fashioned gasoline gauge. The needle is on the empty side. That's way over to your left. And as you pump in the fuel, it swings over gradually up to the F and pins the needle. Roughly 180-degree swing. Let's put the most risky investments over on the full side. Pork belly futures, something of that kind. And the least risky, perhaps a CD, that's pretty solid, I agree, under $100,000, certainly an FDIC insured institution. Okay, now we've set up a huge parameter. Most other investments fall someplace on the scale. You have to determine how much risk you're able to take, how much risk you're comfortable in taking. Some of us are gamblers. Some of us want great rewards and are prepared to give great risk. Others wouldn't sleep if they were involved in anything other than the most secure investment. There is no right or wrong. But you have to determine what risk factor you're able to endure. Now, it doesn't mean that everything has to be at the same number on the scale. It might mean you want to pick a number, 40% of your stuff into absolutely secure things, or another 40% in the middle somewhere, and the remaining 20% way up on the top of the scale, high risk, shooting crap. Let's make a lot of money, and we may lose a lot of money. But understand, you have to understand your risk tolerance, and nobody can do that for you. Then, of course, there's a time factor. If you're 21 years old, you're immortal. If you're 65 years old, you know just how ephemeral our life is. If you're 21, you have all manner of time to recover from a hiccup in the economy. If you're 75, that hiccup can destroy you. I remember some years ago, The state that I was then living in was going to condemn some property. I mean, a ton of property, like 3,000 acres, if memory serves me. And what these rascals did, and I really question the morality of this, what they did was they went to the weaker of the property owners first to establish values. They went to one of my neighbors, and I was at this time 29, and, life was well ahead of me. But they went to one of my neighbors who was in his 70s. Now, he couldn't sell his farm. Why? Nobody would buy it, knowing that this imminent condemnation was hovering over like a dark cloud. They went to him and they offered him a very, very low amount for his acreage, a fraction of what we ultimately received. We said, Mr. So-and-so, why did you do that? He said, look, fellas, you guys are young. You can sweat the state out, but it may take 20 years, and in fact, it came close to taking 20 years. He said, 20 years from now, I'm going to be dead. So I've got to take what I can get, enjoy the rest of my life. He acted in enlightened self-interest. He took the time factor into account. Yeah, we could hang out. Those of us that were a bit younger knew that we would use the property to our benefit until such time as we were in court with the state, however long it took. But Bill, he couldn't do that because he knew that, actuarially anyway, 20 years from now, he would be nothing but a memory. So you have to understand, the longer you can invest, the higher the rate of return you can expect, because you can hang in there through the ups and the downs. You can bet on one thing. All investments are cyclical. Cyclical. There are going to be ups and downs. A lot of young people, and not so young really, have lived through a period where up until a couple of years ago, real estate went in one direction, up. But unhappily, that was not a natural process. It should have been cyclical. And when the fall came, the fall was not anywhere near as severe as the rise, but nonetheless a great deal more severe than it would have been had we had the normal ups and downs. Now, as an investor, before you take a kopeck and put it in any kind of a market, you've got to identify where you want to go. You remember we talked about a roadmap? I'm going to try and draw you the roadmap. No, let me take that back. I'm not going to draw you the roadmap. I'm going to give you the tools, the paper, the pencil, whatever else you need, but you'll have to be your own cartographer. Let's identify where we want to get. How can you go somewhere unless you know where you're going? Or put another way, identify your goals. What are your most important financial goals? List as many as you can, and then take the top 3. Memorize them. It could be, for example, that retirement is the thing that you're most strong. You hate your job, or you like it, but it's okay, but you can't wait until you're 60, 62. You want to be completely financially independent. You want to get a motorhome, go across the country, maybe even around the world. That's fine if that's your goal. It may be to educate a whole bunch of children and grandchildren. That's all right, too. You get the message. You have to identify your goals. They are very personal. And then determine what you're willing to do and how much risk you're willing to take to get there. A great many people don't want to live on Maalox, and I can understand that. Others of us, if we don't have an adrenaline rush, life is really incomplete. Then, based on your budget, after you've paid the rent, the mortgage, the groceries, the things that you can't finesse, determine in dollars how much you can afford to put aside. Unhappily, if you have a relatively modest amount of money, the burden is more and more going to be on you. Anybody who looks at you when you got a $50, $100 a month to save and says, I'll be your financial planner, throw them right out of the door. Because nobody can afford to act as your financial planner with savings as modest as that. Now, I'm not denigrating the number of dollars. When someone looks at you and your baby blue eyes and says, oh boy, that $100 a month, I'm going to really make it grow, get nervous. Do consult professionals. Find out what they have to offer, what they're prepared to do for you. But understand, you have got to become aware. Couch potatoes, pay attention. It's great to be there on the couch, checking out the hockey game, swilling down that cold shooter. But that's never going to get you where you want to go. You're going to have to take at least part of your free time, turn off the radio and the television, and start to read. That R-E-A-D is a 4-letter word, but it's not a dirty word. You really have to read. Now, I'm not going to give you a lengthy hit list, but there are several publications which you should be familiar with. One is the Wall Street Journal. In my opinion, the finest newspaper published. Right behind it, Money Magazine, written in language the average person can understand. Now, in both of these publications, there's a lot of stuff that has no interest to you or to me. The troublesome part is what's interesting to me may not be interesting to you, or valuable to me, not valuable to you. I'm not saying read every word, but it should be part of your life. Investors Daily, your local business sections in the newspapers. There are many television shows, or at least inserts, that deal in business. Some of the news stations give a business report twice an hour. Listen to those things. Learn the language and absorb. That way, when someone talks to you, you'll understand. We're going to get involved in some of those definitions. Now, I am not going to lug around a dictionary. I don't expect you to memorize each of these. But as we go along, we're going to talk about terms. Try and commit one or two a day to memory. Let your vocabulary grow. Now, there are three ideas that will work for almost everyone. First of all, be as debt-free as you can in your personal life. Now, it doesn't mean it's something wrong with having a mortgage. It doesn't mean that credit is an evil thing. But it does mean that either one of these areas can drag you down if the proper steps aren't taken. Try and pay off your debts as quickly as you can. But before you do that, establish and maintain an emergency fund of cash. Now, I don't mean in your mattress. I'm talking about cash that you can get at with a minimum of fuss. 3 to 6 months net income. That means take-home pay in cash. You don't touch that unless Chicken Little was right. The sky is falling. That is blood money, emergency money. That doesn't mean vacation money. It doesn't mean college tuition. That's not blood or emergency. Only when something truly serious comes along. And finally, remember it's terribly important not to carry all your eggs in one basket. You know, that old saw has a lot to recommend it. You fall down, they're all in one basket, you got one big omelet. Some of you guys and gals have worked for some fine companies. Big track record. They've done well by you. The stock is split and resplit. It's gone up and up and up. Given all that, you shouldn't have all of your money in that one company's stock because something could happen. They could be a takeover target. They could get involved in some kind of litigation. All of a sudden we find out that 60 years ago one of their plants polluted one of the Great Lakes, and all of their resources could be siphoned off. I mean, the landscape is littered with major corporations that suddenly became involved in litigation, and the value of their stock decreased geometrically. Truly, don't carry all the stuff into one basket. No matter how good that blue chip widow and orphan stock is, there should be 4 or 5, not just one. And don't make the mistake, I don't care how knowledgeable you are in the area, say pharmaceuticals. Don't put all of your money in pharmaceutical stocks because they tend to move as a group. If things are going down or up, they tend to move as a bunch. You're so much better off to pick different areas, maybe the pharmaceuticals, the automobile stocks. You know what I'm saying. It doesn't require a whole bunch of knowledge to figure that one out. But so many people are overinvested in one area, and when something goes down the toilet, they get flushed away before they know what happens. And that's another problem. You see, the professional investor can sit there all day long watching these ticker signs going past. All I get is a headache when I see that. But that's the guy, the gal, who has those, you know, the glasses that are made out of old Coca-Cola bottles. They're about 2 inches thick, and they never get up to go to the bathroom from the time the market opens till the time the market closes, and they're sitting there with their calculators and computers. You're going to beat them in trading? I don't think so. I don't really think so. I'd rather enlist their aid. That's what money managers are all about, and we'll talk about that. Now, I want to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you. Maybe you want to take a little time out right now. Yeah, get a no-dose, cup of coffee, a little caffeine, because let me tell you, this is not going to be a whole lot of fun. Maybe you want to take this in little bits and snatches, 2 or 3 minutes here, play it back a couple of times so you can get a picture in your own mind. So here we go, but if you can't master the vocabulary, you're doomed to defeat. How about annualized yield? This is the return that you receive over a year, but it takes into account the effects of compound interest if any is in play. You really have to be able to understand this in order to know if you're getting a good deal, an average deal, or a poor deal. Now, I've told you that bonds are simply a way of loaning money to either a government agency or a private organization. The risks can be almost non-existent. If you loan money to the U.S. government, I got news for you. If the government goes down, we're all going down. Doesn't matter very much. Companies are another matter. Some of the strongest corporations have been known to get in serious financial trouble. Standard & Poor's and Moody's are two of the better regarded rating organizations. By and large, unless you're a real pro or a real crapshooter, stay away from the lower graded stuff. Go for the quality. And of course, you've heard of junk bonds. Yeah. Unless you're a real professional, enough said, stay away. I've told you that stocks are simply a way of sharing ownership in a corporation, hence the word shares of stock. There are two essential types of stock. Common stock, name implies, and it's correct. You are at the bottom of the list. You're common. You have voting privileges. Now they can be split. That means that you got to be a little careful. It could be that your company has two types of common stock, A and B. This is particularly true of some of the older companies. The way this works is the guys who start the company get the A stock and lots of votes, maybe 10 votes for one share. The B stockholders get 1 for 1. Well, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you control a small amount of A stock and outvote the B stock. Know what you're getting into. Preferred stock pays a stated dividend. It is preferred over the common. You don't have to worry so much about the ups and downs because the first stockholder that gets paid is the preferred stockholder. However, if a company goes gangbusters, you only get the agreed upon rate of interest. It's for the more conservative investor once again. A convertible security. It's a preferred security, could be a stock, can be a bond, that allows you at some future time to convert it to a common stock at a very preferential price. Now, what's preferential today could be ridiculous tomorrow. I know of a situation where when a company was acquired, the stock was trading at $32.50. Not too shabby. The people who sold the company took, as well as so much in cash, the warrants, and we'll get the warrants in a minute, the rights to buy another 1 million shares at $35 a share. As we speak, the stock is hovering somewhere in the $3 range. Now, what do you suppose those warrants are worth? Yeah, not even as much as waste paper value because it's probably on a piece of paper that can't be recycled. At the time, those warrants could have been worth a ton. If the stock went to 40, the company that sold could then cash in their warrants and buy the securities at $5 below the market. So simply put, a warrant is an option to buy a new common stock from the issuing company at a pre-agreed upon price at a specific time sometime in the future. Boy, there's a mouthful. Simply put, you can buy stock at a great price in the event the stock goes up. The stock goes down, you take the warrants and you just paste them on the wall. They look great in a place like Bennigan's Tavern. That's what it comes down to. There are things called puts and calls. No, they're not athletic activities. A put is an option to sell stock at a specified price before a certain date. If you expect the stock to tumble, you might want to buy what's called a put. In this way, if the stock goes down, the owner can sell at the predetermined price or at the current market price. A call is an option to buy stock at a specified price before a certain date. If you're betting a stock will rise, you can buy a call. Let's give you an example of that. You think the stock is grossly underpriced at $10. You can buy what is called a call option, let's say just for one share, to buy it at $12 a share. You say, well, why would I want that? Well, instead of having to spend $10, you might only spend 10 cents to buy the call option. Then if the stock goes above $12, you can force the seller to let you have it at the $12 price. You're betting the stock is going to go up. The guy selling the call option is betting the stock is going to go down. And then there are some intermediate categories, which I really don't want to get into just now, where you both buy and sell at the same time. The loose term is called a straddle. Now that gets really technical, and if you don't know what you're doing, stay away. Anybody who wants to sell you a straddle, walk the other way. T-bills. They're simply loaning the money to our government, the U.S. government, at a discount. Now, T-bills rates are struck at what's called a Treasury bill auction. This is where people compete to buy or lend money to the government. The maturities are 1 year or less, and the minimum face value is $10,000. You can buy a T-bill through your broker. You can buy a T-bill ordinarily through your banker or directly from the Treasury. I would suggest to you that you not go direct. In the event that something comes a cropper, The back room at the Treasury simply isn't equipped to handle your small problem. If a major brokerage house has the same problem, somebody's going to pay attention. A T-note is an intermediate obligation to the government. That's right, you're loaning money to the government once again, but from 1 to 10 years. And they're sold with values from $1,000 and up. And then they have the long-term stuff, Treasury bonds. Debt obligations, but if you're in a hurry, forget about them because the maturities can be 10, 15, 20, or more years. Now, that doesn't mean if you're 50 years old, you can't buy a bond because there's what's known as a secondary market. You can always sell them, sometimes at a premium and sometimes at a loss. But the only way that you can be guaranteed to get all of your money back plus interest is to hold to maturity. And clearly, for a lot of us, the bonds are going to mature long after we have. I won't embellish on that. Then, of course, there's the traditional U.S. savings bond, Series AA. It's backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. You can buy them through banks, payroll deductions, and the interest is tax deferred, not tax-free, but tax deferred. And in some instances, if you buy the bonds and use them for educational pursuits and you meet certain income guidelines, which are changing, then the interest can be tax-free. For a long time, savings bonds were just a terrible way to invest money. They weren't competitive, but the government has brought them into the competitive marketplace, and for a lot of folks who are absolutely afraid to take any risk, AA bonds can be a very solid investment. You've heard the term annuities. What are they? Well, they're products that are sold by insurance companies. They have many tax advantages, tax-deferred growth. However, many are currently having taxes imposed upon them by the state as well as the federal level. And we've got another problem. Some very large insurance companies have found themselves into some trouble. What happened to them? Well, for the most part, they invested too heavily in real estate that has shrunk in value. And in some cases, annuities were threatened. Now, to the best of my knowledge, no major company has had to renege or default on annuity as of this time. But what I'm suggesting is if you're going to buy an annuity, nothing wrong with that, but be certain you're dealing with a company that is really on financial solid ground. Now, there are two types of annuities. A fixed annuity, this product earns a fixed rate of interest, which is tied to long-term rates. It's a classic safe investment that you hear many people refer to with built-in guarantees. Then there's the variable annuity. Now, this is a newer form of annuity. It has the same tax-deferred growth. However, the rate of return is tied directly to the rate of the account in which the annuitant chooses. In other words, if you pick something and it doesn't go up, the growth is there if it does, but also the risk is there, and there's no guarantees built in. On balance, I would suggest to you that fixed annuities perhaps have a great deal more merit than the variable product. But both types of annuities have surrender charges built in if you use them or hold them for less than 3 to 7 years. Inquire. If you're in a situation where you'll have to get your money rather quickly, an annuity very likely is not for you. Now we get to one that most of us, if we've managed to salt away a couple of bucks, will take advantage of and with. That's a mutual fund. We keep hearing the term, but do you really understand what it is? Really, it's not complicated. It's taking your money and my money and the guy next door's money, dropping it into a community pot, and then hiring a professional investor to make the decisions on a day-to-day basis where our funds will go. It allows for diversity. Let's face it, you couldn't go out and buy 100, 200 stocks. Well, maybe you could, but I certainly could not. Another benefit is the opportunity for professional management that I mentioned, expertise that you and I seldom possess. Now, there are tons and tons of different types of mutual funds, and there's no way in the world that I could list them all. You will find them listed on a regular basis in Money Magazine. They have what they call their fund, F-U-N-D, watch. No, that's not something on your wrist. They take a look at funds on a regular basis, and they report the best ones, meaning the best in performance, and the clinkers. And today's best fund could be tomorrow's clinker. You'll see the disclaimer in there all the time. Past performance is not guarantee of future performance. Well, you can believe on that and take it to Barclays. A number of other things could happen there, among others, that the fund manager quits his job. Well, the fund has the same name, but there are different people handling your dough. The guys that get a home run this year are across the street at the competitor's office. Be aware of that. Ask if there are any changes before you invest your money. Now, there are, as I said, many kinds of funds. The most common for retirees, near retirees, are income funds. The goal, and we talked about goals for us, well, mutual funds have goals. The goal is to preserve your capital by investing in the blue chips, the widows and orphans stock. Generate income, not necessarily growth for you, the investor. In other words, they're not looking for stocks that are going to go through the roof, but they are looking for stocks that are going to pay a much higher than average rate of return. Then you have growth funds. They're on the opposite end of the scale. They don't concern themselves with dividends. They don't care if a company's had a dividend in 5 years. What they're looking at is, are these companies progressive? Are they growing? Are they expanding? Are their prospects for the future great? Will we see a growth in the value of the underlying securities? That's what growth funds are all about. Sometimes you have growth funds specializing on one area of the economy. We mentioned the pharmaceuticals before. There are funds that only invest in pharmaceuticals, only invest in oils. In short, they get into one area. Now, if that area takes off, God bless them. But generally speaking, whole areas such as oils fall in lockstep. Know what you're up to. There are junk bond funds. Oh, yeah, these fellas invest in the real stuff out there that nobody else wants to touch. Now, if they get lucky and they hit a home run, I got to tell you, it's bases loaded, bottom of the ninth, they take home all the candy. On the other side of that, the risk factor is inordinately high. Then there are government bond funds. These guys only buy various government bonds. Now, as a practical matter, many folks believe if you're going to go involve yourself only in government bonds, buy the bonds. There's no reason to have the costs that are involved in managing the government securities. But there is differences of opinion there too, and I guess you can make a case for allowing a professional manager to handle it. But by and large, unless you have tons of money, I mean big time money, you can go into the bond marketplace with government bonds and buy your own.
The Bruce Williams series continues. Please turn to side B.
Dollar cost averaging. If there is one term that you must understand, this has got to be the one. Let's assume that a security sells for $5. You buy 100 shares, you've invested $500. Let's assume now that the security falls to $2.50. If you go out and buy another 100 shares for $250, now you have paid a different price for the $5 and the $2.50. So your overall cost averaged out is $3.75. A moment ago you had 500 shares and you'd lost half of your money. But by buying an additional 500 shares, you have now cut your losses, on paper at least, to a quarter. Put another way, if the stock just goes back halfway to where it was, you'll be even. Another way to look at dollar cost averaging is to pick a security that you really like, a company that you're in favor of, that you really think has possibilities, and every so often, every month, every 2 months, buy the same number of shares without regard to the price. Over the long pull, you'll catch the average cost. Now, you're never going to make the great home run, but ordinarily you will avoid the huge hit as well. But where do you get your information about the stocks that you're going to buy? Well, you ought to be getting your information from non-interested sources. Hey, the guy who's selling the stuff, he's got a definite interest in selling you a specific product, a specific stock, bond, or what it happens to be. He can provide you with a number of different prospectus for different companies. I will tell you this, they're not easy to read. You may have to have some help, and even there you may have a problem. But try to work your way through. But get your information from other sources, magazines, listen to the radio, listen to talk shows. Seriously. Find out what's happening in the marketplace. You know the routine, it sounds too good to be true, et cetera, et cetera. Well, that's true. It really is. Big killings make a lot of headlines. I mean, you'll sit there and you'll pick up the paper and it'll say some stock doubled in price literally overnight. The overwhelming likelihood is, over the long pull, you'll have many more losers than you will winners. Enough of the definitions for a while, because we're going back to them. But those goals I keep harping at, discipline and goals. Decide what's important to you. Clearly, I don't intend to retire. I want to keep on going until I drop. But that's me. A lot of folks want to do that. But others say, boy, if I can get out at 45 or 50, look at the guys in the Army. Some of them get out at 38, 20 years. Police officers, firemen, many cases, 20 years and gone. That's terrific. But decide what you want to do and what's important to you. I'd share them with your family. Don't spring on the big surprise. All of a sudden, Mother, I'm quitting my job and we're retiring. She's just getting started on her new job. The kids are out of the nest, and you want to move to Arizona or Florida. Or you may be moving alone. Don't spring the surprises. Check it out with your family. I'm not suggesting that you have to accede to their every wish, but they're entitled to know what you have in mind. Then consider what investments will get you where you want to go. You got to worry about your current income. Here we go, and we'll touch on this from time to time. Taxes. How to shelter your income. How to keep it out of the rascal's collection basket if you can. And of course, where your savings, your retirement savings, your active savings should be. You must understand, and I've talked about this so many times, that cycles are absolutely unavoidable. There is no flat and level playing field. Real estate goes up, real estate goes down. Stocks go up, stocks go down. In good times or bad, things are moving. The one thing you can depend upon is change. And one of the ways to avoid getting really belted when the change happens is be diversified. Play both ends of the street. You can buy debt and you can buy equity, low-risk issues. You can have a lower risk if you invest your money in mutual funds. Why? Because we're back to diversification again. The mutual funds are all over the lot. They can buy a whole spectrum that you could never afford on an individual basis unless you bought one share of this, another share of that. Another advantage to the mutual fund is ordinarily there's not just one fund, but a family of funds. A gold fund, a stock fund, a growth fund, so on, even a money market fund. And ordinarily you can move your money from one fund to another with no additional cost as long as you stay inside the family of funds. That's not always true, by the way. Ask ahead of time. Sometimes it looks very attractive getting into the fund when you find out when you sell, they really sock it to you. And that can be a genuine disaster because if you've been good and maybe a little lucky, you've got a lot more in there on the outside than on the inside. So ask exactly what the expenses are going to be before you invest. How are you going to invest your money? Now, here we go. These are ballpark rules of thumb. They are not written in concrete, stainless steel, or anything of that sort. But if you're a young person now, how do we define young? Well, for this definition, between 20 and 40, you want to consider being heavily invested in growth areas and more lightly in bonds, which are fixed rate, and monies, cash, CDs, that sort of thing. But as you, this is a nice word, I want to say age, mature, you're between, say, 40 and 60. Well, instead of having the growth stocks, you want to start thinking about maybe only 20% of growth and 60% in that blue chip widows and orphans and 20% in some cash vehicles. And as you really mature, pains me to say 60 and older, you might want to consider as much as 80% of your money in income and 20% in money markets. Now, these are rules of thumb only. I have talked to people in their 80s who enjoy the action. I know a woman who is 85 years old, and she knows more about stocks and bonds than I'll ever know. And she's out there every day in action, in play. And I know she's doubled her net worth in the last 4 years. Not too shabby. And I'm talking about several million to a bunch of millions. Sharp as a tack. But she is the exception. Most ladies at 85 couldn't handle the excitement. Really. They couldn't handle the downside. I remember very distinctly when this lady called me the day of the big crash back in, 87, October of 87? And she said, Bruce, can you recommend a broker? My broker can't buy fast enough. She was in there with both feet buying when the whole world was selling. Well, very smart lady. She did okay. Do you know what compound interest can do for you? If you want to get in the area of finance and mention a controversial name, it's John Maynard Keyes. But when he talked about compound interest, he called it magic. It's amazing. Think about this. You have $10,000 earning 8%. After 1 year, you had $10,800. After the second year, it jumps to $11,664, and at the end of 5 years, just a tad less than $15,000, $14,693. Now, that assumes, of course, that your interest is on all of the interest that you've earned. That means you got to pay your taxes from some other source. How do you figure how quickly money will double? We come to the magic rule of 72s. All you do is divide the rate that you are earning into 72. As an example, if you're earning 8%, 9/8, if I remember my times table, is 72. Given that, in 9 years, at 8%, your money will double. But once again, only if the taxes are paid from some other source or it's a tax-deferred proposition. It assumes that all 8% will hang in there and be working for you. This is why IRAs are such a wonderful thing. Even though the rascals took away the tax advantage going in for most of us, assume that you're in your 20s and you put $2,000 into an IRA. And let's further assume at the end of the first year, let's say you make 10%, nice even number to play with, you made $200. Ordinarily, of the $200, you'd have to spend something in the order of $66 sending off to Washington so they could fight a war or go into some welfare program. If it's in the IRA fold, that $66 is going to stay in your care, custody, and control for the next 40 to 50 years, working for you. Do the compound interest on just that $66 and see what you have 40 or 50 years from now. Miracle? Pretty close to it. Magic? I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway, all you got to do is divide the interest into 72, and you know how many years it will take for your investments to double. Another coined term is opportunity cost. Put simply, an investment is only a good investment if the money couldn't have done better someplace else, maybe with someone else. Of course, taking into account the acceptable risk you're prepared to take a look at. Let's go over that again. It's only a good investment if you couldn't do something better someplace else. In other words, a mortgage might be a good deal for you, only if you're not paying the bank significantly more than they're giving you on your CD. Oftentimes, people put their money in CDs, then they go to the same bank and they get a mortgage. That doesn't make any sense at all. It only makes sense if you have to have some of that money readily available in cash. And remember, risk and reward. They're holding hands, ordinarily. And if they're not, then you really got a problem. The more risk, the more reward. And if you're having a problem deciding how much risk you're comfortable with, back the screw down a little bit. Always go on the conservative side. And if you can, find help with a financial professional who can help clarify things. They cannot make the decision. They should not make the decision for you. But they may be able to be the catalytic agent that will help you arrive at the proper decision. Okay, today is the day. Payday. Who do you pay first? The mortgage? Maybe. The automobile company? Possibly. But I think you ought to pay you first. In other words, yours comes right off the top of the cupcake. You take the icing, let the other guys take the cake. 10 to 20% is what people are looking at, but be candid. 20% is tough. That's a great deal of money. Be happy with 10%. Anything above that will put a gold star on your forehead. Ask yourself, can I sleep at night with the risk that I'm taking? Well, how about a little bit of balance? A lot of folks call it the financial triangle. Now, if you look at a triangle or look at a pyramid, the base is broad and it comes to a little point on the top. Fair enough? So at the broad base, you're going to have your T-bills, your double-E bonds, solid life insurance, IRAs, things that are not going to erode in value other than by inflation. This is money in the bank, truly. This is not any risk whatever. The next level, your savings account with that blood money we've discussed. 6 months net income if you're able to do it. I'm really uncomfortable with the next one because I don't think the personal residence should be characterized as part of your worth. I think that should be put aside someplace. Certainly you don't count it for business purposes, but the professionals say that your personal residence is in there someplace, so I'm willing to go along. But when I figure my net worth, the house that I live in is not counted at all. I don't put that on the line, not at all. Then we come to blue chip stocks, and on top of that, growth stocks, and finally, the collectibles, the pork bellies, the precious metals. This is the area where you can have a home run or you can strike out. And clearly, the pyramid is pointed on top, so there's less room for the collectibles than there is on the bottom with the T-bills, the double-E bonds, and so forth. Just visualize that type of a program, that type of ladder, and you'll keep yourself on pretty firm ground. Now, Money in the mattress only gives you lumps and a bad back. Clearly, you can't shove your money into your mattress. It just results in a bad night's sleep and no interest. But be balanced. That's what the pyramid is all about. And remember this, a dollar is not a dollar anymore. I mean, if you talk to people about the 1930s that were around, I mean, they talk about 10-cent steaks, and they were right. But a time bought a great deal. 30 years, 58 to 88, the dollar establishing a par of 1 in 1958 is worth a quarter in 1988 and worth a ton less even today. That's the tragedy of inflation. When you try to compare what you're earning with what your father earned, you really can't compare it in dollars. You got to compare it in how many hours did he have to work to provide a service. As an example, let's go back into the 40s and the 50s. A telephone call cost a nickel, 5 cents in the coin slot. Wow, what a bargain that was. Not really. You're better off at a quarter today. The minimum wage at that time was something in the order of 35 cents an hour, or 1/7 of a minimum wage hour to make a phone call. Today, the minimum wage is in excess of $5. That's how many times? 15 times or thereabouts the minimum wage then, but a phone call costs 5 times as much. What does that tell you? The phone is a much cheaper instrument today than it was then. 40 years ago, a coast-to-coast airplane ticket one way ran about $115 to $120. You say, wow, I'd love to go coast-to-coast for that kind of dough. But think about this. The average factory worker was earning about $1.25 an hour. How many hours did the average guy have to work to get on that airplane? Well, the average person today works a ton less to go a whole lot further. If you go around the world for what he paid to go coast to coast. And by the way, now you go in comfort. He went on an airplane from New York to Chicago to St. Louis to Kansas City, maybe stopping in Utah someplace, then on the bottom part of the West Coast and the top. And oh yeah, he was well fed with a box lunch. No, the good old days, forget about that. The choices you make now will affect your life so much later on. Think about this. If you invested $10,000 over the last 30 years in a traditional savings account, you'd have earned something on the order of $47,000 in change in interest, or have a total of $57,000. If you put it in a Standard & Poor's 500 fund, that same 10 grand over the same period of time, instead of being worth $57,000 and change, worth $196,000 and change. Furthermore, if you operated correctly, you would have had all of the interest or growth deferred in the stock investment. If you had it in the savings account, every year you would have had to pay taxes on the minimal interest that you earned. Miracle of compounding, yes. Unhappily, unless you're prepared to take some risk and get into the equities area, the inflation will eat you alive. Even 4 or 5% inflation can shoot your plane down in flames. And that's the unhappy truth. This will come as a great shock. People are living longer and longer, and they're retiring earlier. Well, that's okay. As a matter of fact, I suspect it's good. Retirement is a beginning, not an ending. Not too many years ago, people retired, put out the pasture, and waited to die. Hey, today's retirees are out there kicking. They're learning how to fly airplanes, learning new dances, taking trips around the world, going on cruises, doing all of the things they didn't have time to do when they were raising the trolls, the rugrats, and I think that's terrific. I really do. However, the unhappy fact is there are a lot of people who aren't taking cruises. There are a lot of folks who are not spending their winters in a warm climate and sneaking back up north to visit the grandchildren in the summertime. Why? Because they didn't plan, or their plans never came to fruition. It's truly necessary to plan. Let's face it, our population is growing older. It wasn't so many years ago, this is going to really kill some of you guys, that the radio and television industry didn't count you as a listener if you're over 49. Yeah, when you turned 50, you became a non-entity. Well, these fools are starting to realize that you guys and gals on the wrong side of 50 have the bread. That's right. The young people are out there struggling, thinking, can I afford another package of disposable diapers, or I have to break down and wash out the cloth ones? You men and women over 50 are sitting there saying, well, let me see, should I buy the Lincoln convertible or perhaps the Cadillac, and I can drive that to the dock when I go on my Oriental cruise? You've got the money as a group. Now, there are things that you must consider in this retirement scheme. Social Security. Don't take it for granted. I'm one of those people who believe it's going to be around for quite a while. but there are a lot of folks who question its viability. Let's face it, if you did with your funds in a private concern what our government has done with Social Security funds, they wouldn't put you in jail, they'd put you under the jail. I mean, it's a travesty. We're having more and more people retire and less workers support them. But I still believe in the foreseeable future Social Security will be with us. You can't assume that your company pension will be enough. Even the most generous pensions, unless you have some kind of a golden parachute, typically replaces something in the order of 1/2 of your current salary. Floating in Social Security, you still won't have enough. You've got to put aside some of your wealth, some of your canned labor today to be spent at a future date. Clearly, health care costs are going crazy. It is my contention, sooner or later, our government is going to have to recognize that we'll have to have some kind of a federal health plan. I guess that rubs against my conservative nature to some extent, but the fact is that health care costs are increasing geometrically with no end in sight. As a consequence, people can be wiped out. Good people who have spent their entire life living conservatively, saving, scratching, scrimping, educating their kids, sending them off to war, paying their taxes, and then a catastrophic illness wipes them out. That will change, but perhaps not in your lifetime or mine. So you've got to plan for additional cost. And think about this too. This wouldn't put a cloud over your head. The older you get, the more expensive healthcare cost becomes and the more healthcare you need. I mean, the body starts to wear down and perhaps even wear out. There are increased costs associated with deteriorating health that you might overlook. You may not be able to get into your own shopping quite as well. Cut the lawn, caring for your home, cleaning and whatever. Extra cost to maintain not additional style of living, but the same style of living. Studies indicate, and this is sick, 75% of elderly families can't afford luxury items because routine living cost absorbs all or most of their income. Now, you've got to do something about that for you. We can't solve society's problems, but perhaps we can solve some of yours. You've got to understand the magnitude of the financial requirements facing people in retirement. Most folks underestimate the cost of retirement. They think their costs will go down when in fact they may go up. Hey, you got lots of time to play. You don't want to sit in a porch and just rock. You want to be down there on the beach. You learn how to windsurf. You're playing softball. You're doing all sorts of things that cost extra money. Now, where you live can make a big difference. If you're living and working in Northern California where the cost of a home is so high it's immoral, you might want to think about moving inland or to a place where you can buy a home of the same size for 1/3 the cost. You say, I don't want to leave my kids. Well, let me tell you something. It's a lot cheaper to fly in and out from time to time than it is to maintain that $300,000 or $400,000 house that can be replicated for $75,000 in a very pleasant climate. Consider that. How come everyone doesn't save for their retirement? Well, first of all, young people never going to get old. I mean, that's never going to happen to me. Gray hair, receding hairline, a couple of extra pounds. Why? When you're on the beach and you're 22 or 23, that's as far away as a distant planet. But it does sneak up altogether too quickly. Most people, and this is sad, live from paycheck to paycheck. But if you only spend 90% and save at least 10%, you are in a very select fraternity or sorority, but it's one that really deserves attention. It's a good place to be. And of course, it's the unexpected. Gee, the car just blew a transmission. The refrigerator went out and everything spoiled. And suddenly the great idea of saving this week or this month right out the door. You can't let that get you down. You've got to plan for the unexpected. There's got to be some residual in the budget to plan for the unexpected. How about inadequate insurance? Yeah, the fire nobody ever expected to have, but it attacks your home and you don't have enough insurance. Now you're really behind the 8 ball. And we're going to talk about the appropriate amount of insurance and what types of insurance to buy, because insurance really is a nuisance. No one likes paying premiums, least of all me. But everyone wants the appropriate insurance in place when the unexpected does happen. And it isn't always the other guy who's going to have the fire, have the hurricane, break a leg, or have an automobile accident. And of course, how about this? Divorce. This will scare you a little bit. Half the people that are married right now are going to get divorced in the United States. One half. What are you looking at your wife that way for? It's true. It's a problem because literally two can live cheaper than one and one. One and one has to have a separate household, perhaps two automobiles, or one would do, and so on and so forth. Why beat it to death? Fact is that divorce is going to affect at least one out of every two people who are married at this time. Many times there is a non-working spouse. She'll have to go back to work. He'll have to go back to work. And of course, the retirement funds get whacked up into two separate units. Not pleasant, but something that you should consider. Now, for most folks, retirement priorities are never even spelled out. Never thought about them. Well, we're going to make you spell them out. First of all, don't think that you're going to live for a whole lot less or you're going to want to have a lower standard of living. It may be you'll require less space. I mean, you don't need 5 bedrooms when there's only 2 of you. But on balance, you still want to dress well. You want to drive a respectable automobile. You want to be able to go to a film or out to dinner when you choose to. So don't set a lower standard of living. You want to remain independent financially. Nobody wants to depend upon their kids. I mean, that's the sort of thing, that's your own particular kind of hell. It's true, 2 parents can raise 10 kids, but 10 kids cannot raise and support 2 parents. Do your very best to remain independent. And oh yeah, and this will fly in the face of some stuff I'm going to tell you later, and perhaps you've heard from many places. Don't give all your money away. I'd rather have the tax man get it when I'm dead than impoverish myself while I'm alive and find out that either through irresponsibility, something beyond their control, the funds that I entrusted to my offspring were in some way dissipated, and now I'm totally dependent. And frankly, I want to call my own shots. If I want to throw it away in Las Vegas, or I want to take a trip around the world with a chipster half my age, I want to make that decision. I don't want my kids making it for me, and I don't want your children making it for you. Of course, you'll do your best to minimize the tax impact. The more you give to the government, the less you have for yourself. I'm not suggesting that you cheat. I am suggesting that you take advantage of every single tax loophole that's available to you, that you use professionals to help you find them. And of course, if you want to retire early and it's possible, go for it. I have a good friend. He said, Bruce, the company made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They told me at 55 I'd get 95% of my retirement. I did the arithmetic. That means I'm working for something in the order of a nickel on a dollar. I mean, I'm working for about minimum wage if I continue to work. I mean, I'm not the smartest guy in the world, but I'm not stupid. He had to take the early out. Problem was, he had nothing to do with his time. What did he do? He's a bright guy. He went out and got himself a job. He said, look, I've been an executive all my life. Now I clean parking lots on a big machine. It's like driving a bumper car. I'm having a great time. I get up in the morning and drive this thing around the parking lot and do some security work and so forth. I'm having fun. I'm out of my wife's hair, which is important. Too much togetherness can put you right in that 50% that goes in separate directions. But in short, he was faced with a problem, solved the problem correctly on 2 fronts. He grabbed what was clearly to his financial advantage, and then he found something else to do with his time. A lot of people are absolutely obsessed with passing wealth on to future generations. Now, if you've accumulated a great deal of wealth, I can understand where you want to get it to your kids, not to the government. But I like that bumper sticker that you see on motorhomes. I'm spending my kids' inheritance. That's I want to die 105 years old, broke, and shot by a jealous husband with good cause to be angry.
The Bruce Williams series continues on cassette number 4.
Now, the planning process. Knowledge is strength. Gather up all the information that you have about you, put it on a table, and get it in order. Find out what your pension is going to give you or is giving you. If you're not certain what your status is with Social Security, it's easy. There is a postcard you can pick up from your Social Security department. I have done so. You fill it out, and in something on the order, it seems to me about 6 weeks, you get the card back, and it tells you, based upon what your earnings are to date, how much money that you will receive at Social Security at age 62 and 65 if you never contribute another nickel. At least you'll know what you're getting from that score. If you don't know what your pension will kick off, by all means, ask the agent. They can give you a pretty good idea of if, again, no more contributions are made, how much at age 62 or age 65 will fall in your lap on the first of every month. Take a look at where you are in terms of personal assets as well as debt. And take a look at the number of years between now and the time you want to quit and what it's going to take to retire that debt. I know we got a roadmap and we're working on it, but you're clearly going to have to keep rebuilding roads and bridges. In other words, determine and redetermine and redetermine and redefine your objectives. They are going to change. As an example, you might be a sports freak and then you pick up a permanent disability. Well, you're not going to spend your time playing softball and windsurfing. You've got to redetermine what you are going to do. Don't look at that as some kind of a major defeat. You can't change that. Now, that's philosophical, I guess. But if something happens, maybe you develop a minor heart condition. Well, you can't go skydiving anymore. I'm sorry about that. But okay, you had your kick. Find something else to do. Find a new interest. Work with your professionals, the accountant, the lawyer, the rest of the crowd. Develop a plan that's realistic and then implement your plan. Review it regularly. And of course, understand there are outside factors that are going to change it. Yeah, a detour come up. What kind of a detour? They changed the tax laws. Look what those rascals did in 1986. A lot of folks had put the majority of their retirement income into real estate. And then those people in Washington decided, oh, you have too many advantages in real estate. They changed the laws. As a consequence, real estate values plummeted like a rock out of an airplane. If you weren't swift, if you didn't get out in a rush, you wound up losing a substantial amount of that retirement dollar. In short, you've got to keep your eye on tax laws. You got to keep your eye on market conditions and what's happening in the world. Nothing, but nothing is forever. An IRA is still a great deal. Sure it is. Now, I was saying for years when IRAs were deductible for everyone, hey, do it quick because those rascals will figure out what an intelligent thing they did and they'll undo it. Think about this. They finally created an instrument that encouraged people to create capital and leave the capital in one place for a long period of time, which created jobs, helped the economy in every single front. So what'd they do? Well, they said, we can't do this. I mean, this is good for the public. We'll take it away from them. So they took away the tax deductibility if you had a pension somewhere else. The genius that figured that out ought to be made a hero of some foreign government because it certainly didn't do us any good, and it certainly helped our competitors making capital less available in our own country. You have to wonder what these guys are thinking about. Understand what is available to you if you're employed in terms of profit sharing, in terms of investing in your own pension plan. Oftentimes, companies will give you dollar for dollar or 50 cents on a dollar extra if you invest part of your money in a savings plan. You got to be so foolish not to take advantage of these things. I've talked to so many people who said, I can't afford to. You can't afford not to. Even if you got to get a part-time job to earn the money that they're withholding from your paycheck, you simply cannot afford to take advantage of all these little goodies and little gizmos. When you're preparing for retirement, you are going to be faced with some choices. The unhappy problem is, or the unhappy condition is, people make choices quickly. And you can't undo the choices. You got to live with them for the rest of your life. I know a guy, he's very, very well versed on retirement law. He makes his living giving seminars to just one group of people retiring from the state government of his state, because there are such a convoluted number of choices to be made when they retire. If they make the wrong choice, they got to live with it. In other words, should they take so many dollars now, so many later? Should there be money there in case the principal retiree passes away for the spouse and so on? Should he take it all up front? Well, you make the choice, you live with the choice. And he makes a very comfortable living and also does a great public service by showing people the appropriate choices for them. Now, a very classic example, one that is used in many seminars, but makes a lot of sense. And it's much more convoluted than the simple example I'm going to give you, but you'll get the program. Suppose you're offered $1,000 a month retirement, and it dies with you. Or, alternatively, $700 a month, but it dies only when you and your spouse die. You say, well, gee, I got to take care of her or take care of him. I'll take the $700. Maybe yes, maybe no. But think about this. You're going to take $3,600 a year less in the example I gave you. If you're in decent health, it might well be to your advantage to buy an insurance policy with the $3,600. That way, if you kick the bucket, your pension goes away. However, there'll be a whole chunk of insurance cash that your spouse can now invest. She'll still have the same $700 or $800 a month coming in, and on top of that, she has the principal amount instead of the company having it. Now, if for any reason she leaves first, you can say simply, insurance company, I don't want the insurance anymore. Now you got the extra $3,500 or $3,600 a year coming in. You got the $1,000 for the rest of your life. Well, by the by, this is for you gentlemen. The likelihood is that your bride is going to outlive you by something in the order of 18 years. Think about that. The ladies just stick around. If you want to be persuaded of that, go to any nursing facility, and you'll find at least a dozen women or more for every guy. My brother, bless him, said, we guys have the decency to die. The ladies live on forever. Well, be that as it may, living on for that last 15 to 20 years can be an extremely expensive venture. The choice is yours. Do it right or suffer for it. Do you remember the example when you were in probably elementary or high school when they talked about fire? They said it was like a three-legged milking stool. In order for a fire to work, you had to have the appropriate temperature, you had to have fuel, and you had to have oxygen. The three legs of the stool. And if you kicked out any one of the legs, you had no more fire. Well, the same thing is true with planning your retirement. There are three legs in our little retirement stool. The first leg we've discussed. That's your pension leg. But that alone will not support the stool. The second leg is personal savings. Now, an IRA is considered personal savings, and you know my opinion, is a great idea, even though the tax deduction isn't available to most of us. Don't be too speculative with your retirement dollars. They should be balanced, they should be safe, but don't be too conservative either. Some of those things should be in stocks in areas that there is going to be growth. If it's strictly in money instruments, you're going to get killed because inflation is going to eat away at those legs in the whole stool. What you should do is set up your retirement accounts, contribute systematically, and remember your personal savings should make up almost 50%. Should we say it again? Your personal savings will have to make almost 50% of your retirement money. That means you have to use the D word, discipline, and you must use tax advantage products when possible. In other words, tax deferment. The longer you can keep a dollar away from the uncle, the longer it's working for you, compounding, the better off you are. The third leg is retirement planning from government-sponsored programs, Social Security, Medicare, entitlement programs. There are a lot of people who are collecting that don't really agree with the programs, but the fact is you paid for it. Don't be foolish. As long as it's available, collect. Billions of dollars are distributed every year through these programs. If you're not one of the 38 million people getting benefits today, the likelihood is you're one of the 131 million working under Social Security who are paying the benefits to the 38 million, and the youngsters that you see running around in diapers right now will be paying your benefits one day. Did you know this, just as a little piece of trivia, only half of the Social Security benefits that are being paid are paid to retirement workers? That's true. Only half. The balance goes to widows, orphans, other types of programs, SSI, and whatever. Here's another little piece of trivia that will knock your socks off. Most families pay more in Social Security, they call it contributions. Some contribution, they take it away from you. It's a tax. Than they pay in payroll taxes. That's right. Social Security and Medicare taxes equal and in most cases exceed what the average bear pays in federal income tax. These programs become monoliths. A lot of people don't think they'll be around forever. It's my contention that as long as the federal government is able to tax us on other areas, that these entitlement programs will continue. They may be modified to some extent. Who would have believed a few years ago that they'd be taxing Social Security income? You think about that. You put your money away, you're forced to save it, and now when they give it back to you, they want to tax it. And they are taxing it. That's another program. Now, Social Security does have one feature. It adjusts for the cost of living. Yeah, the first of every year, they have what are called COLAs, cost of living adjustments. But here are the questions you should ask about Social Security. First of all, if you're still contributing, what does it cost me? You can't very much change that, but you ought to know just for your own benefit. What benefits does Social Security provide, and how does it affect me? How much will I get if I qualify and when I qualify? When will I qualify? And most important, how can I make certain I get that to which I'm entitled? You owe that to yourself, and nobody's going to do it for you. Nobody's going to rap it on your door and saying it's time to apply. You have to take the initiative. Now, there are a ton of changes that you should know about, and one thing, as I mentioned earlier, the one thing you depend upon is change. Even as these words are spoken, changes will be made, dating and indeed invalidating some of the things I'm telling you. There's no way in the world that can be overcome. Right now, the maximum taxable earnings is a bit over $50,000 a year. Think about that. Just a few years ago, it was $3,600. Now it's $50,000. The tax rate, 7.65%. And if you're self-employed, you can almost double that. The earnings limitation for benefactors under age 65 is above $6,800 a year. Put another way, if you earn that amount of money and you're collecting, they're going to start taking away your benefits. If you're not making or have not made the max, if you work past 65, you can increase your benefit. But if you paid in the max for a number of years, max is max is max. All you're going to do is pay in more and take out less. These are just numbers that you might want to have at your fingertips for whatever reason. The average monthly benefit for the last year recorded is $566. The average monthly benefit for a retired couple is something in the order of $1,000 a month. And the average monthly benefit for a young widow with 2 eligible children is something in the order of $1,200 a month. I'm not accustomed to giving you a whole bunch of numbers, but the Social Security Administration 800 number for more information is 772-1213. That's 800-772-1213. Who's covered by Social Security? Well, just about everyone who's self-employed or employed is covered by Social Security and Medicare, but there are a few who are not. Federal employees hired before 1984 are covered by the hospital insurance part of Medicare, but ordinarily not by old age, survivor, and disability insurance. They're covered by the civil service retirement or a similar pension plan. Almost 30% of state and local government employees are not covered, and of course railroad workers aren't covered. They're covered under their own Federal Administration railroad retirement system. You ought to know where you fit and how you fit. Who receives benefits and when? Well, Social Security will pay you when you reach retirement age, ordinarily 62 or 65, you call a tune, or if you're disabled, or, unhappily, if you die. Now, the benefits are increased with the COLAs, that cost of living adjustment, in January of each year. Now, I'm not going to go through the numbers. I do have them here, but I'm not going to go through the numbers how much you will receive. You find out what your situation is, and the folks at Social Security will tell you precisely what you're entitled to collect. Be certain that you get it. The Social Security Act and amendments thereto have provided all manner of benefits for disability, for insurance when you become older, Medicare supplement policies are recommended. This is entirely too convoluted for this type of a presentation. Suffice it to say that you owe it to yourself to drop by the Social Security office, pick up as many pamphlets as you are able, and digest them in small groups. Once again, don't sit down and spend a day with those. You go crazy with those pamphlets. Spend 20 minutes a day for the next 3 weeks. You can write to the Social Security Administration. However, you will have to tell them exactly what you're looking for. If you go down to their office, ordinarily there's a rack of pamphlets, and you can choose. I'd grab them all, one of each, and then go through and make notes in the margin. And when you have all of your questions formulated that you can't find the answers for, then you call the 800 number I gave you and request the information. Let's face it, Social Security began under Franklin Roosevelt in the 1930s. It was not designed as a retirement program as such. It was designed to be a supplement to your own good judgment. Unhappily, it has grown into a program that many people feel should support them in their declining years. Unhappily, the funds simply are not there. Not enough is going to come in from Social Security alone. We're back to that miserable discipline word again. There's only one person that's going to look out for you and yours. You know who that is. That's you. I'm going to ask you to wade through a ton of very dry material that you're going to need but I don't know any way to dress it up and make it very interesting. Unfortunately, there's some things you just got to, it's like the times tables. There's no shortcut. You just got to learn them. But I also believe in rewards. So what would you really like, within limits? Maybe you're on a strict diet. Tell you what, how about a big juicy piece of chocolate cake or a bowl of ice cream? How about doing this? You set the reward once you've digested the material I'm going to give you. At least you can look ahead. There's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel and immediate gratification. There's nothing wrong with rewarding yourself, whether you're 222 or 202. So you pick the reward, shut the machine off. When you get it all set up, we're going to talk a little bit about risk management and benefits planning. What did Mary Poppins say? A spoonful of sugar makes the medicine go down. Well, this is going to be tough medicine, kids. I have to talk to you a bit about medical costs because they are a huge chunk of most of our budgets. The government tells us that medical costs are increasing at the alarming rate of 1.5 points a month. That's 18% a year. And that's with good claims experience. And on top of this, inflation is very, very low. What an incredible situation. I've said earlier, I'm going to say it again, that sooner or later some type of socialized medical program is the only final answer. However, that may not come about for some time. Now, I've discussed HMOs, health maintenance organizations, with you before. An HMO is a health maintained organization. It's a network of physicians providing dental, medical, eye care, all manner of things. Why would a physician get involved? Let's face it, they are not as well paid because they can work regular hours. They get weekends off for the most part or only cover one weekend a month. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing says a physician should work 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. However, HMOs do take on a somewhat clinic-like appearance. If an HMO is available to you, you might consider it a cost-saving measure, but before you switch, check it out, try it out. The teamwork of physicians may meet your requirements. On the other side of that, you may say, no, I want to pick my own doctor. I want to stay with that guy or gal the rest of my life. If you are inclined to stick with a more traditional coverage, or there's no HMO option available, here are a few things you should take into account. Is there a deductible on the plan? And if so, what is that deductible? The deductible is the amount of money you have to pay before you collect anything. It could be $200, $300, $400, $500, $1,000. Then is there a co-insurance payment required? That's not the deductible. Now you're into the money. You've paid the first $500, but it may be for the next $5,000, you have to pay 20% and the insurance plan pays 80%, and then they'll pay 100%. Or, in fact, there may be co-insurance right from the top to the bottom. There's no one-size-fits-all. Different programs offer different plans, but know what you have, not when you're collecting, but beforehand. Is routine care covered? In other words, do you have to be sick? Or can you go in for routine maintenance, for lack of a better way of explaining it? Can you go in for tests to find out if, in fact, you're in good health or maybe need some work? Do they pay for preventative stuff? Is there a cap? In some cases, it's $1 million, but when you shoot the $1 million, you are done. And here's one for you. Is well baby care covered? Well baby care. In other words, your wife delivers a bouncing baby boy. The pediatrician comes into the hospital and checks him out and sends you a bill for $500. Well, that's nothing wrong with that kid. So oftentimes, you have to pay the $500. If you're paying for coverage through work, is it possible to pay the premiums through the employer? That's a little convoluted. For example, your employer doesn't pay for insurance. You're making $100 a week for the sake of discussion. Insurance costs you $10 a week. Why not go to the boss and say, look, I'll work for $90 a week. You pay the $10. What's the difference? The difference is you're paying with pre-tax dollars, perfectly legal. Instead of paying with 70-cent dollars, you're paying with 100% dollars. The employer comes out ahead because he pays a little less Social Security, a little less workers' compensation, a little less unemployment insurance. It's pretty much a win-win deal for everyone. With your plan, if you have a claim, do you have to jump through a hoop, hold a ball on your nose when you're getting a claim form filled out? If you do, you might want to consider if you have a chance to change to something that makes it a little bit more simple, where you just show a card. Many plans are issuing magnetic cards. The doctors swipe it through a machine. It instantly identifies the insurance company. They're notified, and the whole thing is done. You might want to consult with your physician. Has he heard of your company? What kind of experience has he had? Did they pay their claims promptly? Because if not, the physician has every right to look to you unless he clearly says he accepts assignments. Dental insurance, well, is it good, is it bad? Sometimes it's a good deal, certainly if it's provided at no cost. But if you have to pay extra, first of all, can you use any dentist or are you limited? Are orthodontists covered? That is a big item if you have little trolls. And finally, how about bridges, dentures, and whatever? Caps, are they covered? Many of us, that's all we've got left. Bridges, dentures, and caps. If they're not covered, what in the world would you pay for dental insurance for? Vision insurance is a nice benefit, but clearly not a major item for most of us. Now, obviously, if you need an eye operation, that would be covered under the surgical portion of your insurance ordinarily. I'm talking about getting glasses and routine eye examinations. Not a very big item. Group life. You say, oh boy, that's the best thing since ice cream. Maybe yes, maybe no. But if you're paying, if you're under 40, by and large, grab it. But if you're over 40, shop and check. Oftentimes, the group policies for folks over 40 are not such a major buy, and you can do better on your own. You know I believe in prepaid legals. If it's available to you, check it out. Not every prepaid legal program is the same, but clearly, like hospitalization insurance, it's an idea whose time is long since come. How's that piece of chocolate cake you got in the fridge? I hope you cut one for me, because I'm about ready to have at least a little bit of a nibble to get me through this. Nursing homes. Let me tell you something from personal experience. Picking a nursing home is not a pleasant, not a happy program, and they can cost a ton of money. I mean a ton of money. The average nursing home stay is 2.5 years. The average cost per day is $100 a day, and I'll tell you, it can be a whole bunch more than that. At $100 a day, with the average stay, that can equal in excess of a $90,000 expenditure. Not exactly a small amount of change, and consider if there's a husband and wife, now we're talking $180,000. Is nursing home long-term care coverage worthwhile? Well, yes and no. First of all, if you buy it young enough, it is not all that expensive, but even there, it can be. Choose the company extremely carefully. It pains me to say this, but you ought to be considering sheltering some assets that don't show, so that if you do have to go into a nursing home, at least some of your monies can be squirreled away to be used for you. Medicaid. That's for folks who have really exhausted all of their assets. They let you keep something in the order of $1,500. Isn't that generous? $1,500 wouldn't even get you buried today. But once you've exhausted and spent all of your money, then the government does step in with Medicaid. There are essentially 3 types of care. Custodial. That's the minimum care. You need help, but you do a lot for yourself. Intermediate, with some help, and of course the skilled. That's the traditional nursing home. Now, you'll never know what you're going to need until you need it. There are what they call congregate care facilities, which certainly fill a need. This is probably the custodial level, but they are so much nicer than the word custody seems to imply. My mom was in one for 3 or 4 years. If you were to go in there and not see anyone, you'd think you were in a very nice hotel or motel. Pool, shuffleboard, apartments, individual rooms, no bar, but they had a big old soda fountain. The point is, it was relatively, and that's an interesting term, relatively inexpensive. As I recall, at the time my mom was there, it was something in the order of $15,000, $18,000 a year, as contrasted with between $3,000 and $4,000 a month in a skilled nursing home. Life insurance, not exactly an exciting topic, but on the other hand, you need it. It does satisfy a particular need. What's rather frightening is if you ask many people, how much life insurance do you have? They don't know the answer. They have some at work. They've got some they bought when they were a kid or their parents bought and they've carried on. A little term insurance here, a little whole life there. Well, first of all, let's find out what you're worth dead. Find out how many policies you have and what the death benefit will be. Put that in line 1. Then your savings and your pension plan, its worth, all of your investments. Are you going to inherit some money, you lucky goat you? Well, put that in the line 2. And what other assets you may have. Now you figure out what it's going to cost to plant you, the funeral costs, to get rid of all your debts, your mortgages, your credit cards, the rest of it. Perhaps you have some future debts. I'm talking about paying for a kid's college education and, of course, providing emergency funds for those you leave behind. Add them all up. If the first group exceeds the second group, you're in tall cotton. But ordinarily, the first group or assets are eclipsed by the debt. Well, if that's the case, and the younger you are, the more likely that will be the case, you can supplant the difference with life insurance. That means you're going to need a little bit more. What kind of insurance? Well, it could be term insurance. That means renting the insurance for a short period of time, and that's a good side to that. It's cheap. The bad side is it goes away generally when you're 70 years old. It could be argued that you won't need as much when you're 70, and unless you've been very successful and need money to pay taxes, that is a legitimate argument. Whole life insurance is insurance that you own. The insurance guys and gals will tell you this is the only way to go. I don't agree with that. I think by and large, when you are younger and you're working the short line, you're far better off to buy term insurance and convert it. You will want insurance that can be converted, and here is the operative term, without evidence of insurability. That means if you're sick as a dog, you've been smoking too many cigarettes, you're doing all the bad things, you take a drink when you shouldn't, you can still convert the insurance without the insurance company's permission. Remember that. Without evidence of insurability. Hey, you may have taken up skydiving and all kinds of exciting stuff where the companies don't want to insure you. Well, if you have the term insurance in place that can be converted, you got them just where you want them. And of course, some whole life as a savings vehicle may make sense, but be certain to shop. Universal life. Oh, that was the major issue in the 70s. Term life insurance with an investment side fund. Very candidly, what the insurance companies did was they took advantage of a big tax loophole. It was never designed for what it was being used for, but let's face it, I've said before, if the loophole exists, grab it. But there is a downside with universal life. You see, universal life is not only insurance, but it's an investment program. And if short-term interests move around, or if your investments don't do so swell, you don't do very well with universal life. And on top of that, in many cases, coverage isn't guaranteed after you reach age 60, which is not exactly one foot in the grave. In short, what kind of insurance should you buy? You've got to determine how long do you need it. If it's less than 10 years, term is the only way to fly. If it's for more than 20 years, you might want to consider some permanent insurance. Can you afford it? Well, if you have very little money, only term. But if you have the money and you need the insurance, some permanent form of insurance can be combined with a term insurance plan to give you more savings. It's kind of like having mama standing over you with a wooden spoon. Put the money in the bank, Junior, and don't buy the baseball cards. Only thing mama didn't realize is the baseball cards would be worth more than the money, but that is a whole other program. What do you look out for in term insurance? Well, first of all, a major problem is people plan not to need life insurance past a certain age. You know, the house is paid, the kids are out of school, and so forth. But they forget that lifestyles increase, or they should, and inflation eats away at your income. Think about that inflation factor. Put another way, to maintain, not to increase, but to maintain your style of living because of inflation, you've got to increase your income.
The Bruce Williams series continues. Please turn to side B.
The following is going to upset some of my friends in the insurance business. When it comes to life insurance, it has become ridiculous as personal computers have placed emphasis on illustrations. Insurance companies and some overzealous life insurance agents have begun to base their sales pitches solely upon projected rates of return which cannot be expected reasonably. In some extreme cases, insurance companies have never met these projections. In other cases, they project better mortality in the future. In other words, they feel people are going to live longer, but they have no basis for this. In short, that will affect the bottom line. What you should do is buy insurance products that have guaranteed values built into them forever by solid insurance companies. In today's competitive marketplace, Some insurers have developed products which illustrate fine cash value in life insurance well into the future. However, their guaranteed values vanish at the tender age of 50. This would leave a person without coverage when they need it the most. So always demand to see not just the projected value, but more important, the guaranteed values. The bottom line, shop. Do your homework. You've got to do it. And help is out there. The major rating services do the most to help you. Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Duff & Phelps, and Best Review are all respected sources and available in most libraries. Moody's, Standard & Poor, and Duff & Phelps rate AA and AAA. Buy only from a company AA or above. Now, the Best Review's highest rating is A+. So buy only from an A or above company, but don't confuse the ratings. Know who gives them and know exactly where that rating is on their own particular scale. How about insurance on your spouse and on your kids? Well, if you have a non-working spouse, you can say he or she doesn't bring any bread in. But let me tell you, child care costs, household help is a very costly proposition. Do they warrant insurance? You bet. Insurance on the kids, frankly, I don't believe in that. But it can be a good idea. But the biggest thing that you want to insure with a youngster is their insurability. In other words, buy a policy that allows them to buy more insurance even if they develop a condition which under ordinary conditions would not allow them to become insured. How about that personal umbrella policy? Risk management. Well, boy, you're covering a ton of risk for a few $100 a year or even less. I have some mixed emotions about disability policies. Clearly, if your income is solely dependent upon what you do, perhaps you're a dentist or a barber. If you can't stand on your feet, you can't cut hair. If you can't stand on your feet or look down throats, you can't do dentistry. Your income is completely dependent upon your body. It does make sense to carry some insurance on that body. So if your income stream is interrupted, you don't find yourself in a poorhouse. But these are things you want to look for in any insurance contract. Non-cancelable. Guaranteed renewable. That way, once you got it, they can't take it away from you. Portable. You can't lose it if you change jobs and go to a more hazardous occupation. You want some built-in inflation protection. No matter what you do for a living, you want yourself covered, and you get a right to add to it, even if your health has deteriorated. Auto insurance, we've talked about time and time again. You've got to have enough liability insurance without regard to the age of the automobile. It can be argued that collision and comprehensive should be carried almost forever. I think it's a weak argument. Matter of fact, when you come right down to it, the most you can lose is the cost of the automobile. That could injure you. But let me tell you, get yourself into a huge automobile accident. The liability is fatal. Not the accident, but the liability. Find out exactly what your state requires. Find out what your state offers. Uninsured motorist, some offer it, some don't. Collision, comprehensive, older vehicles, in my opinion, is a no-no. At the very least, keep the deductibles high. That means if you have a fender bender, you're not going to collect. And you're going to cuss me out when you crease that fender for $400 and you have a $500 deductible. But overall, you will save a ton in the cost of the premiums. I do believe that uninsured motorist and underinsured motorist coverage is essential. I mean, you'll be lucky and have the guy who clip you do a lot of damage and maybe some physical damage to your bod, and then find out they're carrying 5, 10, and 5 or some equally odious amount. Medical expenses, income loss, accidental death, funeral expenses, and so forth oftentimes are too costly. Oftentimes they're covered elsewhere, so be certain you don't overinsure or replicate coverage. When it comes to a homeowner's policy, I got to tell you, so many mistakes are made. Sit down, discuss it with your broker. One of the essentials is get a replacement, not actual cash value policy. Think about this. You have a couch. On the used furniture market, it wouldn't bring 15 cents, but if it burns up, you've got to go out and buy a new couch for $1,000. Well, if you have an actual cash value policy, the insurance company may give you $50 or $100. A replacement policy, you get to buy a new couch. Now, it's going to cost more, but it really pays to have it. Whether or not you get a break on smoke alarms, have them in your home. There's no replacing your life. Smokers are being discriminated against. Oh, those poor people can't smoke on airplanes. Many restaurants won't allow them, and many businesses say smoke outside or go to work someplace else. Well, now, some insurance policies, I'm talking about homeowners policies, give you a break if nobody smokes in your home. If you have jewelry, personal objects of art and whatever, be certain that they are covered under your homeowner's policy, and if not, you'll have to schedule them and pay an additional premium. If you're somewhere near water and flood insurance is available, by all means carry it. I don't like paying that premium either, but that 100-year flood can truly wipe you out. Insurance is an important part of our life. It demands our attention. In the event that you don't have the appropriate insurance in place and tragedy strikes, it can wipe out a lifetime of effort. It just doesn't make any sense. I have so many people that contact me on my program. If I'd only listened to you before. Well, it's too late, because when you need the coverage, it's too late to purchase it. Well, gangsters, I don't know about you, but I'm going out to that fridge and I'm going to dig into that big slice of chocolate cake. If you paid attention, you've earned your bit of decadence. Go for it. Let's talk a little bit about estate planning. You say, oh boy, cut me a break. Let's go watch spinach grow. Well, maybe yes and maybe no. But each and every one of us has an estate, however small or however large. And the troublesome part is that with an estate, once you leave this vale of tears, you can't come back out of the grave and correct mistakes, correct problems, correct oversights. So now that you get done yawning, let's listen up. Because if you don't worry about yourself, let's worry about those you leave behind. If you have assets, you have a positive value estate. And whether you like it or whether you don't, sooner or later, you're going to leave this vale of tears. You are indeed. Now, if you don't have an estate plan, not to worry, you got one, except the state of whatever is making the plan. And you can bet on one thing. They are not going to do things the way you would do them. If you don't have an estate plan, the objectives, the goals, way in the back of your mind may never be known, and clearly will not be achieved. Now, what in the world is estate planning? It's not any big mystery. It's simply figuring out what your assets are and then finding out what you want to do with them after you pass away in the most tax and cost-efficient manner, and making certain that the people that you know, love, and respect receive what they should receive. Well, why in the world don't people do proper estate planning? Well, there's a lot of reasons. First of all, a lot of folks simply don't know what they should do. Unfortunately, don't know where to go to get the information. We'll talk about that. More to the point, none of us want to say we're mortal and we're going to die. But that's what this is all about. That's what wills are all about. We're absolutely saying we're going. Well, trust me on this one, kids. We're all going. And then, of course, there's procrastination. Yeah. Procrastination. We're going to do it. We know we got to do it, but mañana, tomorrow, someday, any day but today. Well, we're going to help you, I hope, take the first step and then just go ahead, one foot in front of the other, plod through it. I'll tell you this, you're going to feel a whole lot better when the job gets done. Sort of like getting your teeth cleaned, I guess. Now, think about this. Estate taxes are killers. I mean, they're murderous. They can take over half of what you have worked so hard to accumulate. It's not necessary. You're going to pay taxes, that's true. I don't know how you avoid them all. But if you plan your estate, and you plan it well, you won't have those rascals down in Washington and the state capitol doing the planning for you. At least your families will get what they're entitled to get, and no more. And if there is no planning, oftentimes you can set one family member against another. Just as an aside, the idea of leaving undivided property to a passel of kids is crazy. In other words, you have a house. Don't leave the house to your 4 children, share and share alike. Why? What happens if one kid wants out? One youngster needs the money. One doesn't get along. One marries somebody and wants to live in the house. Who makes the decision? Far better to let your executor, executrix, personal representative, call them what you will, call the tune. The will might say something about, my loving children will receive the proceeds of the sale of my residence. My executor is hereby directed to dispose of this residence as quickly and as expeditiously as is possible. That way, nobody gets burned. And you could also throw a line in there saying that any of the children are free to bid and the house is to go to the highest bidder, and of course the monies will be divided equally. Now, there are some basics in estate planning that you simply can't avoid. And one of them is an attorney. Yeah, you're getting tired of me talking about attorneys, but it's true. You've got to have an attorney because this is a legal document. And as I mentioned earlier, you can't fix it once you're gone. Be careful with the attorney. Don't just go to the yellow pages. Get some referrals from people you respect. Interview, talk to them, find out what they know about the field. Get an idea of precisely what they are going to charge. And pick one that you feel comfortable with, someone that you can sit down with, confide in, and have confidence in. If you don't find one today, look again tomorrow. It's important that the appropriate and proper professional help you along the way. You're going to be obliged to do some things which are a little painful and troublesome. First of all, you're going to have to organize. You put on the table all the relevant materials. That means your will or wills, tax returns, inheritances, probable inheritances, business papers, insurance policies. It's all out there. Your stocks, your bonds. I don't mean in person. No, the stocks and bonds can be down there in the street name, but a notation so you know what you've got. Then you sit down with your family and you say, look, this is what I want to do. These are the things I expect of you. These are the charities that I would like to take care of upon my death. Spell it out. If anybody has an objection, get it on the table. The last thing you want somebody running around is contesting your will, trying to upset what you have done. After you and the family agree on these goals, discuss the goals with the planners. Map out the reasonable ways to accomplish your goals. Now, one of your goals is to pay no taxes. Unlikely that you're going to attain that goal. You might, depending upon the size of your estate, but maybe I should say realistic goals, and get as close as you can. And by the way, every single document must be properly executed. Now, the method of execution will vary from jurisdiction to jurisdiction and from document to document. In some areas, you must have outside people witness a will. Others, an attorney's signature is sufficient. Know what's appropriate in your jurisdiction because there's nothing more frustrating, nothing more worthless than a document that you've sweated over that says exactly what you want it to say, but it's not properly implemented because it wasn't signed and or witnessed in the appropriate fashion. I mean, that's a small thing, but a small thing that caused a ton of grief for those people you love the most. Really what we're saying here is this is an act of love. You're doing the dirty work. You're getting the job done. Is there something wrong with that? I don't think so. Now, you're going to hear all manner of terms. And unhappily, I have to define some of these terms. Now, these are not meant to be all-encompassing definitions, just to give you an easy handle on some of the terms that the professionals may be throwing at you. Now, if you don't understand a term, listen carefully and either look it up, or if it's used in such a fashion where you don't understand its usage, don't be silly. Don't just sit there and nod your head. Hey, stop right there. Would you please tell me what you're talking about? Remember, there has never been a stupid question. A ton of stupid answers, but never a stupid question. Now, a simple will is simply a document that provides for the payment of your just debts. Of course, someone is appointed as an executor or executrix, usually to serve without bond. That means you trust them. They don't have to post a bond with a surrogate. They first pay off your bills, get you buried and all that sort of good stuff, and then take care of specific bequests. You know, you want to send some money here or there, they take care of that. They have to do this according to the law as well as according to the will. In other words, in most places you can't cut your wife out of the will. You've got to give her at least a third. If you cut her out completely, she can upset the will and she may get it all. It may be there's a minor child. Your will is the place to appoint a guardian for that minor child in the event that you're no longer in the picture. It may be you'll want to appoint a separate beneficiary for minor children. Your spouse is great to handle the kids, but you want somebody else handling your money. Well, these are things that are accomplished in a simple will. Now, an exemption trust will can result in substantial savings by taking full advantage of the unified credit. Hey, this is not a bad deal. You can protect up to $600,000 of property from estate taxes and gift tax. Hey, this $600,000 is important, but you got to do it right. And you can reduce that $600,000 by giving away money taxably during your lifetime. And of course, gifts are a decent estate planning tool. You can reduce your taxes by giving money away before you go. You can give up to $10,000 to anybody, even me, send me a check, each year without any taxable problems or taxable events. You may hear the term split gifts. All this means is if you're married, your spouse can join in making the gift. That way you can give $20,000 per year to anyone you choose without tax consequences. Or put another way, if you have a youngster that is married, now you can give the married couple $40,000 a year with no tax consequences. Now, I'm never going to tell people give up all your money. That's your security. But if you're loaded with dough and you know that you can spare the money, or you know you can trust the kids, and that's a whole different matter, there's no reason in the world why not to transfer things in your lifetime rather than give them to our mutual uncle. Someone may talk to you about a life insurance trust. An irrevocable, that means you can't revoke it, an irrevocable trust with life insurance can provide for your family. It can provide tax-free funds for estate settlement costs, in other words, to pay taxes, and help you avoid some probate costs. Now, this is not a light move. As soon as you see the word irrevocable, think it out very thoroughly, because once you make the move, you are out of the loop. You can't change it. You may be told about a charitable remainder trust. This enables an individual to make a substantial deferred grant to a charity while they retain the right to payments under the trust. In other words, they get the income while they live, and then the principal goes on to the charity after they leave this vale of tears. There are all manner of trusts. There's a Q-tip trust. There's a qualified domestic trust. I've just tried to touch on a few of these. I want you to be aware that they're available, and your professional planner should be able to help you make the right decisions. Now, you've heard a lot about living trusts. They're very popular. Every time I do a personal appearance, people bring them up. Now, are they for everybody? Possibly not. But there are a number of major league benefits. You retain the rights. The three big benefits: nothing is public. You see, the most public of people or the most private of people with a will becomes public. Anybody, once the will is filed, can go right to the surrogate's office and ask for a copy for $1 or $2 or $3. It's a public document. With a living trust, everything is private. It's more difficult to overthrow ordinarily than a will. If you're concerned that perhaps a renegade relative may try to overturn your will, then trusts might be more important to you than the average bear. And of course, it does help you avoid some of the probate cost. Now, that's particularly important if you have a very large estate or property in several states, since probate can be different in various states, and it may be necessary for you to file in each of these. You've heard a lot of talk about a living will. Here is an area that you really can't afford to ignore. If you skip everything else, think about this one, because I have been in this position as the principal player in the main event. Once you reach a certain point, do you want to be kept alive if there's no chance of recovery? Now, you haven't been really vilified. You haven't been denigrated till you've been put on life support equipment, where you have tubes and holes you never knew you owned, where you have a machine breathing for you, where you're being pumped full of chemicals and whatever to keep you alive. Now, if you're a relatively young person and the prognosis is decent for recovery, of course you want someone to take every single step that's possible to keep you alive, to get you back on track again. If every competent medical authority available says the only direction you're heading in is down, that there is no chance of recovery, that the body can be kept alive, but the brain is finished, do you want to be kept alive on a machine? I most certainly don't. And yet, unless you take the time, the effort to make a living will, which is available in many, many states now, and hopefully in all states in the not-too-distant future, the hospital, your physician, even your family is obligated to take all manner of steps to keep that corpse alive at tremendous expense and a tremendous mental effort on the part of those you love the most. No, I don't want that for me. I would want it for someone who I love. And furthermore, why force a decision on someone else about you? If you feel as I do, that you don't want these steps taken, and most of us, I think, upon reflection, feel that way, by all means, get a living will. Very little cost involved. And it can save a ton of grief for you and for those you love. Hey, here's one, a rabbi trust. Think about the rabbi trust. A deferred compensation arrangement to provide the employee, could be you, with some measure of assurance that he'll actually receive promised future payments. In other words, your boss says, look, we're going to pay you $1 a week and $1 sometime in the future. It's called deferred compensation. You say, isn't that nice? What happens if you're not in the picture? Where's the money? Well, that's what a rabbi trust is all about. But there is a hooker. It's largely psychological because, you see, monies that are put aside in such a trust continue to be subjected to the claims of employers' creditors. In other words, in the event that your employer, the company, gets in trouble, the creditors can attack this trust, the money that was put aside for you. At least you know at one point the money was available, but it can be attacked is what I'm getting to. Let's talk about kids for a minute. I mean, there are all sorts of trusts for minors, and some of these trusts make a lot of sense. But on balance, in my judgment, it is very unwise to set up trusts for little people that come available to those kids when they turn 18. Why? Well, let's face it. We all know youngsters, either kids that were our peers, some of our own children, children of our friends, that at 18 or 19 were going through a very difficult period in their lives. And some of them have straightened out and some haven't. I mean, let's face it, fast cars, the wrong company, maybe some narcotics, all of those things come into play. Well, the last thing you want to do for a kid like that is put a loaded gun in his paw. Or put another way, the last thing you want to do is give that kid a ton of money that they can spend on anything they wish. Now, I wouldn't do that to a youngster. I wouldn't do that to their parents. Grandparents, take note. Put the money away where some adult who you know and trust makes the decision whether or not to give it to them now or ever. Or ever. Or if you don't like the or ever, well, when they're 35, they get the money. Or at the discretion of the trustee. Or the money can only be spent by the trustee for them for educational purposes or something of that nature. In short, no blank checks to adults we don't know. We know the child, but not the adult the child will become. It's very, very important. Think about this. Without estate planning, if you're fortunate enough to have a $5 million estate, it can go on to your spouse with no taxes, but when that spouse goes away, $192,800 credit for the spouse on the estate tax of $2,390,800, or the total tax that you're going to have to pay, or she will pay or he will pay, $2,198,000. That's a lot of bread. But if you do it right with proper estate planning, the first $600,000 goes in for the unified credit. That's right. That way, it passes on to the principal, to the kids. The estate tax is $192,800. The tax credit is $192,800. No tax due. The remaining $4,400,000 goes directly to your spouse. The state then has $2,060,800 total due, less the credit, or you save $300,000 with simple planning. Now, we're not talking about complex stuff. This is simple. The more esoteric, more money is saved. Also, if you establish an insurance policy inside a trust, the policy could pay the tax at a greatly reduced rate. In short, the tax laws are very complex. And I'm not 100% sure that anybody could say they make absolute sense. But the fact is that you and I have to live with these laws. Given that set of conditions, the best thing we can possibly do is take advantage of every single break that's available. I have never met any one individual that could help you do that. It does require a team of people. It also requires some sacrifice on your part. You're going to have to read. You're going to have to listen. You're going to have to study and understand. But clearly it is a small price to pay for the satisfaction of knowing that the things you've worked for so hard remain yours as long as possible and then are disposed of in an orderly fashion and go to the people that you love, not to support some welfare program or military complex that you have absolutely no interest in. Well, that brings this little thing to a conclusion. I do hope you've enjoyed it. Perhaps more important, I hope you've learned a little bit along the way. If you get one solid piece of information that can be helpful to you in your life, then you've gotten full value, and I mean that very sincerely. Most of this will not apply to anybody, but a bit here, a bit there, and all of it will apply well for someone. Feel free to use the information within limits. In other words, you can't print it, you can't reproduce it, but if there's some information here you want to pass on to a friend or a relative, by all means do so. Not necessary to footnote it. If you can help someone else with their life, hey, you and I will both benefit from that. You've been very fortunate. You've been born into a time in our history where opportunities are unlimited, and most of you have been born into a country that gives you opportunities that most of the world can only dream of. And that is a fact. I am grateful. I hope you are as well. My thanks to all the people that made this thing possible. You'll find their names someplace along the way in the literature. But most of all, my friends, thanks to you for making my life so pleasant. I mean that very sincerely. Till we get together again, I do wish you well. Now, I know it's not easy, but give it your best shot, huh? You try and do what's right. I'm Bruce Williams. Keep in touch.